Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow underway on this Thursday edition. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network, which includes our YouTube channel. You can stream us live there. Just search OutKick, hit subscribe, join Chad in the chat. Hope you'll ring that bell and give us a thumbs up as well. And you can be alerted anytime we go live, any of the shows across the OutKick network. If you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you for that. Jam-packed show with Amy Dash, Odyssey's legal insider. She will be with us coming up in 20 minutes. We'll dive into the lawsuit from Jim Trotter, formerly of NFL Network, against the league, naming a couple of owners and Roger Goodell, NFL commissioner. Trey Wallace joins us each Thursday. He'll be with us later this hour on all things college football from OutKick.com. Also with great work at OutKick, Armando Salguero. NFL Week 2 previews. We'll recap his weekend at the Meadowlands. We've got one big thing on every NFL game coming up later in the show. Plus, Ryan Leaf joins us to preview all things college and NFL football for the weekend. Chad, good afternoon.
And the weekend has arrived. We say for the weekend. I look at it as if the weekend is already here.
We've got Thursday night football tonight. College games as well.
A couple college games. I think Navy and Memphis are doing battle tonight in college. You got
Eagles and Vikings tonight.
Eagles, Vikings. I mean, let's go. It's time.
Minnesota staring down an 0-2 start, potentially.
I'm staring down an 0-2 start in our survivor pool on the show because of the Vikings. And their 0-1 start cost me.
At least you don't have to pick them again.
It's true. I'll never pick them again. They're dead to me now forever.
We hit the top headlines of the day for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow, Scorched Earth headlines, and it starts with, speaking of picking spots and teams, how many recruits are going to be picking Colorado? All things Colorado for the third week in a row as Primetime and Deion Sanders and a very talented roster, 63 new scholarship players from last year to this year, and only returned 10 scholarship players from last year to this year. And we've been asking the question as we started the week, what will this roster look like 12 months from now? What will the first big recruiting cycle turn over for Deion, where he's saying he's getting all kinds of calls, the program being inundated with recruits at the high school level? We know better than that. It's everywhere. But at the high school level specifically, inquiring about the process, how they can come and make a visit, what the standard is and what the protocol would be from the program with the Buffs. Chad, this is just getting started, and who knows where we are 3 weeks from now with Colorado. They've got Colorado State this week. Then they take on Oregon on the road, back at home against USC. By the time we get to mid-October, this thing could be on fire. It could also just be regress to the mean, regress to the middle. I doubt it's that based on their upcoming schedule. I think they'll be extremely competitive, and the headlines, well, they write themselves for Deion Sanders anytime he's at the podium.
Yeah, I'm right now looking at the On3 industry rankings of team recruiting for 2024. Colorado 60th nationally. They have 8 players committed, and that's it. They have 2 4-stars, 6 3-stars. So there's definitely a blank canvas there. I don't know. Managing numbers and scholarship numbers at Colorado, I mean, you've got to get a Ivy League educated mathematician in there to try to figure this out of how many players they're going to bring into each class, knowing Deion Sanders is going to go ham in the transfer portal every single year, but not just by taking guys. He's going to cut guys loose the way we saw that. This is not going to be a one-year thing. I think if he thinks someone's not cutting it, he's going to tell them to GTFO
for sure
and go find someone else in the portal. So how does that affect his high school recruiting? This is a big weekend for him. Tons of top high school recruits are coming in. That class is going to look a lot better by December signing day, and I know they're going to add to it. A local example, we're based here in Nashville. One of the top recruits in the state of Tennessee out of the Chattanooga area, a guy named Boo Carter, committed to Tennessee for a while. He's visiting Colorado this weekend. Now, he was asked about it, and he said, well, I'm still committed to Tennessee, but I get one shot at taking visits like this.
Yeah.
And everyone is going to be there.
Well,
in recruiting, and all of these shows are there. I mean, it's not just –
And think about just from the high school player's perspective, I would absolutely take every visit I possibly could.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And look, who knows? Some of these guys are going to flip and end up going to Colorado. You know that's going to happen. I don't know specifically about him, but there's going to be some that do that. It's not just Fox Big Noon Kickoff and College Game Day. 60 Minutes is doing a profile on Deion Sanders. They're going to be at this game. First Take is going live from Boulder, Colorado. This is a Colorado State game that is going to air at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 o'clock Central on ESPN. It's crazy to think about.
And let's put this in perspective, too.
Just how the sports universe has all migrated to Boulder, Colorado.
The Pac-12 contract with ESPN. Big Noon Kickoff is broadcasting that show from a game that Fox is not carrying for the first time. And ESPN is taking game day there for the first time since 1996. And it's not for USC Colorado. It's for Colorado State in week 3. That blows my mind that we're already to that level. And the star of college football is the head coach, Deion Sanders.
Well, and it's not just Deion is the star, but as we saw with Shedeur Sanders and his post-game comments and Travis Hunter, these guys are taking on his persona.
Yes.
It's not hard to see his sons certainly having his persona.
And they have a part of that anyway if they're following him wherever he goes.
It's becoming the U part 2. Right? This is I mean, imagine the era of the U if social media was around and there were a million sports shows out there and a million other shows talking about them. It would have been different. It wouldn't have just been 2 live crew following Miami. Everyone would be following Miami. And people watch those games, and they knew about Miami during that time also. But we just have so much more going on now, and so many more eyeballs in different ways to give attention to that program and to show it off. And when you got a guy like Deion Sanders who's so willing to do and say whatever, it's an endless cycle.
He's a fight promoter.
Again, when they start to lose, which will happen, when that happens, what's it going to be like? What's that post-game press conference going to be like if they lose by 35 to USC? What's it going to be like if they get upset at some point this season, a game we're not expecting? What if they were to lose on Saturday night? I don't think it's going to happen, but all these firsts for Deion and this program, we've seen a couple of firsts already. They're 2-0 against Power 5 teams. Not many teams in America can say that, have already beaten 2 Power 5 teams. They can. That's a first. What's the next first for this program? And how is it handled? We're all going to be watching, that's for sure.
And, hey, we're not naive here. It's not just the recruiting and recruits at the high school level that they're taking calls or getting inundated with. It is going to – I mean, there's no doubt that there are players right now that are already thinking, how do I get to Boulder? We mentioned Travis Etienne. He's tweeting after the first game, the first loss by Florida to Utah. I can't wait for my little brother to get to Boulder based on what Deion Sanders is doing. And, how does he handle the loss? He'll handle it, I think, Chad, the same way he and his team have been handling the first 2 games with concocting this we're going to make it personal mindset for every opponent. And Jay Norvell is making it very easy on this week against Colorado State, head coach there for the Rams. They are just a little background. They had the week off. They had the bye week in week 2. They're 0-1, and they're now making a change at quarterback, going with a redshirt freshman who's making the start in Boulder. And here is Norvell on his coach's show explaining when he was speaking with ESPN what he told them and what his mindset is going into the matchup with Deion and Colorado.
And I sat down with ESPN today, and I don't care if they hear it in Boulder. I told them I took my hat off and I took my glasses off, and I said, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat and my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me. So
all 30 people in attendance were clapping there.
That actually sounded like a pretty good attendance for the Colorado State coaches
I
show.
agree. You think it was piped in?
I was impressed. No. I figured it would just be a bunch of people just like they just landed in a restaurant somewhere, a sports bar, and no one's paying attention to them. And they're in the corner. Those were some people that were actually paying attention and applauding their coach when he said that.
There are too many coaches that just stay in the background and would not even dare try to make headlines, so I respect him for that. This is not the week to do that. with all eyes
Well,
and everyone in attendance and the ticket prices and everything else that is craziness. Norvell's making the headline and giving more fuel to the Deion Sanders primetime, Coach Prime push that it's backs against the wall, us against them, and listen what the coach is saying, down the road. This is not the week to do it coming off a bye week where you're already making a quarterback change.
We're going to get into some big takes later in the show, so I want to save some of this for that. I'll just say this as a general rule that we've talked about on this show, that the OutKick founder Clay Travis has talked about. One of the first people I know to discuss this is Clay was starting out in the media business. He had a rule about never feuding down. You always feud up. If you're going to feud with someone, feud up.
You're right.
It's not worth it to feud down. Jay Norvell is feuding up in a big way, and I respect it. I'm going to talk more about it a little bit later. I think this is brilliant by him, and I think you might see some other coaches that try to siphon off a little bit of that Deion Sanders publicity train when they go head-to-head with Deion. I'm not mad about it. I don't think that anything that he says is going to change, anything that's going to happen in this game. Deion Sanders is going out there to steamroll Colorado State regardless of what's said. I don't see Deion Sanders taking a knee and putting backups in and running the ball regardless of what Jay Norvell says or doesn't say. He's trying to put on a show. He is the show right now. He wants that show to continue. He's not letting his foot off the gas in the second half. This is a 3-touchdown game. He's trying to score as many points as possible. This doesn't change that at all. He was going to do that regardless. So I'm not mad at Jay Norvell for this one.
Yeah, no reason to be upset. It's just we know the result.
It's very much kind of an old guy. And look, I'm more and more by the day becoming an old guy, kind of an old guy diss. I was taught by my mama and daddy that take off for sunglasses and hats when you address people.
And it is
that's kind of a funny jab at Deion, but I like that he's jabbing.
It is, but it is something you notice when he's sitting at the podium or behind the desk speaking at the pressers with the sunglasses on, and you mentioned they're going to go out and score as many points as possible. I mean, is there any doubt that Deion's going out with the biggest cowboy hat and sunglasses that he can find and taking the field? He addressed this whenever he heard about Norvell's comments on his coach's show, and guess what? He's wearing a hat and wearing sunglasses.
Okay. Yeah, what I hear, I haven't met this gentleman, but I hear he's a good man. I know he's a great coach. He has those guys playing hard. I like that. I like that. I'm glad he said that. I like that.
I'm sure he does.
I think he does like it. He's like, hey, thanks for adding a little more fuel to my
wants
fire.
To spar.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. It gets him energized. Do you know he's sleeping in his office the nights before a game?
Yeah, he opened Big Noon Kickoff. They asked him, where'd you sleep last night? He said the name of the I guess it's like a complex attached to the field that overlooks the field. And he said he wanted to wake up, and the first thing that he saw was the field when he wakes up in the morning. Look, it's not stopping anytime soon. I don't think that we've reached the peak of this because they're probably going to win this week. And then it's going to continue again, and you've got Oregon and USC right around the corner. I mean, this is a show that's not ending anytime soon. So why not milk it? And if you're Jay Norvell, become a part of it. The 1 week you have a chance to become a part of it.
And the next couple of weeks, Dan Lanning, who mentioned Colorado and relevance to whenever they bolted for the Big 12 initially. Of course, Oregon ends up going to the Big 10 anyway. And then following that, USC, which is the current reigning, defending Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, and a young head coach that is known for teaching and coaching the best at the position. So
I'm trying to keep a tally of the people who have actually spoken Deion Sanders' name or mentioned the Colorado program and given them some sort of disrespect. Add to this list, Hutton, if you can. We should keep a running tally of this on the show and update it. Jay Norvell becomes the latest one.
The list of hate.
He claims Matt Rule did, but everything I've seen and read about Matt Rule, he was on Bussin' with the Boys with Will Compton and, of course, Will Compton, a Nebraska grad, and Taylor Lewan. And they were talking about Deion, but he said nothing negative about Deion. And he said, hey, the portal's a thing. A lot of people are going to use it. He's like, I'm just not spending a lot of time thinking about it because I'm all about the guys we have here, and I'm trying to make sure that they know that I want to coach them. And That's all he said. It was not a slight at him. Pat Narduzzi went after him.
Yes.
Jay Norvell went after him. Brent Venables at Oklahoma went after Deion with some comments. We need a running list
and
to tally the people that have actually mentioned his name.
A couple of head coaches in the HBCUs over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But nothing. More coaches are going to come after him when they start taking players from coaches.
Dan Lanning went after the University of Colorado, not Deion.
What?
He made fun of them leaving the conference, saying,
Right.
what have they contributed? Last I checked, they didn't do a lot when they were in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Now Deion is going to use that. Any coach would use that, by the way, not just Deion. If
But
someone said that about
Lanning
your program.
is in mind while saying that comment. He's speaking on the Colorado football program now.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not specifically
And
about Deion, just overall.
They haven't done anything. From one win to now, both pregame shows headed to Boulder. And the ticket prices, we'll get to that coming up, Chad. Ticket prices are astronomical. In fact, they're surpassing one program that has been at the top since 2021 on the average ticket price on the secondary market. That's also crazy for Game 3.
Colorado State, too, which is a big rivalry in those parts. They play every year. But Colorado State was not a game I was expecting to see some of the highest ticket prices of the year.
The lines wrapped around at the ticket office and the reported number for the city and what they made off of the first home game as well. Coming up, Amy Dash joins us. We discuss Jim Trotter's lawsuit against the NFL. That's next on Hot Mic.
I know you have a very close relationship with them. That's been ongoing for decades now. A lot of people don't realize how you two met. I would love for you to share the story and then also just explain why your relationship with him is still so important to this day.
Yeah, so we met because when we first bought the UFC, none of the venues wanted the UFC. The UFC had a horrible stigma attached to it that we were trying to obviously change and turn this thing into a real sport, get it sanctioned, but venues didn't want us. Now we break every venue record in the world. Back then, venues didn't want us. Trump, think about it too. At that time, the Trump brand was here. UFC brand was, where it was. And this guy saw it. He got it. He wanted us to come to his hotel. He showed up for the first fight, stayed to the last fight, both times that we did an event with him. And then after that, everything that ever happened to me in my career after that, he was the first person to reach out, whether it was a phone call or one time he wrote me a letter on the cover of the New York Times when we got a story in the New York Times. Just saying congratulations. I always knew you were going to do it. And through that, he and I have created a friendship. He's always been incredibly loyal to me and good to me, and I've been the same.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because we've seen him attend a couple of UFC events recently, and oh my gosh, the fanfare. I mean, the excitement, the energy that he stirs up in these sold-out arenas is just insane.
Yeah, I think that right now in these times that we're in and some of the things that we're talking about, UFC, the fans, the fighters, the staff, everybody's pretty aligned. I wouldn't say that we're all equal politically because that's impossible to be politically equal with everybody. Many things about me. I was an old school Democrat at one point. I was a Democrat. I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore Republican. I'm right down the middle, and I'm about common sense. I'm all for common sense. As soon as common sense goes out the window, you lose me. You know what I mean? So I think that as a whole, the UFC base are very much aligned in many ways.
Yeah, common sense is a theme that we like to keep ongoing here at OutKick. So, I've always appreciated you from that aspect. One thing that I think wasn't dealt with so much common sense was the situation in Lahaina. I know that, our current president took his sweet time getting down there. But the UFC, fortunately, was there to provide some relief for the wildfires that caused so much damage to the entire island. I know donating $1 million up front. Is this a cause that you would say is really close to your heart, and how successful has this campaign been so far, Dana?
Yes, first of all, as an American, if anything happens in any state in America, if you own a business, a successful business, you should support. Number one. Number two, Hawaii, everybody in America loves Hawaii. Everybody wants to go there. Everybody wants to take a vacation to Hawaii. And the people there are incredible. They've been very good to the UFC, huge supporters of the UFC. Athletes have come from Hawaii. We love Hawaii, like the shirts that we're selling right now that say to support Hawaii. We love them over there, and we're going to do everything we can to help.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Pleased to be joined by Amy Dash, the Odyssey legal insider. Joins us. You can follow her on social at Amy-TV. Amy, great to have you back on. And let's just jump right into it. Jim Trotter, former employee with NFL Network, now has a discrimination and retaliation lawsuit against the NFL, naming a couple of owners, as well as Commissioner Roger Goodell. What's the end game here as far as how likely or how difficult maybe it is to prove these racial discrimination lawsuits based on your knowledge of things that you've covered and certainly read over the last several years?
Well, it will come down to, how much of it is direct evidence? Is any of it documented? Obviously, the statements were things that were heard that were oral, but were there other witnesses? Were there other people on, for example, the Zoom meeting call that can verify? And then their testimony becomes witness statements too. Actually, circumstantial evidence is the most common method for proving employee discrimination cases. But on top of that, what courts have developed is this framework that they will apply a lot to discrimination cases as well as retaliation, called the McDonnell-Douglas framework. So they'll look at, was Jim qualified for the position to have his contract renewed? Was he then rejected for the position? Did the NFL then go out and try to hire somebody who has either similar credentials or is less qualified than Jim, meaning Jim could have and should have gotten the contract renewed? And then it will be up to the NFL to say, listen, we had a legitimate, non-discriminatory reason why he wasn't employed. Here's what it is. And then Jim has to then go back and demonstrate that that reason is just a pretext for discrimination. So far, I haven't heard, a convincing evidence of why they would have fired him. Surely the fact that he confronts Roger Goodell on national television and weeks later, that's a very short time frame that will be taken into consideration, his contract is not renewed and he's allegedly asked if he's in an alignment with his newsroom. But were there other things going on that could have justified it? Could the NFL come back and say, listen, yes, he may have been pushing to try to change our internal hiring practices, but that's not what he was hired for. He was hired to write stories. And so, maybe because he wasn't staying on task, they could try to justify it that way. But so far, they came out with a public statement saying something very vague that I don't think would be convincing in a court, which is, the environment has changed, the media landscape has changed, and that's why we fired Jim. So I think they're going to need something better than that, more specific than that, to show that that's not just a pretext for discrimination or retaliation based on what he asked Roger Goodell weeks before.
I know it's a totally different case, but we saw Sage Steele sue her employer while still under contract and working for them for retaliation, for being treated unfairly. And she won by all intents and purposes, at least some sort of settlement. At least she's claiming that. I'm curious about if Jim Trotter did this while still employed, the moment that his newsroom questioned him or everything that he's claiming, does that change anything with the fact that, well, it's done after his contract wasn't renewed? Or, Amy, does the contract not being renewed, is that a big piece in this and his claim that that was a part of the retaliation?
Two things is one, it removes the possibility of this is just someone who's disgruntled because they were fired. But at the same time, I think him being fired is a big part of the retaliation claim, if not the central focus of the retaliation claim, to say that weeks after I questioned the NFL publicly, after, as he alleges, letting all these other things that were going on behind the scenes that he didn't agree with go, and sort of, following his superior's instructions not to pursue certain things or not to go public with certain things that he heard, which is what he claims. So now you have an instance where he's publicly going against his employer, and then weeks later he's fired. The firing is central to the retaliation suit, or I should say the not having his contract renewed, however, which way you want to interpret it. So I think where he's going to have trouble in terms of the discrimination versus the retaliation claim, the retaliation may be a stronger claim because the contract wasn't renewed. When you talk about hostile work environment, the question that's going to be asked is, was Jim discriminated against? Meaning, was he treated differently because of his race? Or did he just not agree with what was going on in terms of the hiring practices, the opinions, and the comments of owners? Is enduring commentary that you don't agree with, that you find offensive, but it's not directed necessarily at you specifically. Is that discrimination? Meaning, is it because he's Black and somebody else, an owner, talked about Black people in general and may have allegedly made a racist comment? Is that hostile towards Jim just because he's Black? Or was Jim treated a certain way because he's Black, specifically and directly? Like, was Jim not given advancement opportunities? Or was Jim given big assignments? And that's what the court's going to look at, is how much did he have to endure directly versus, just things he may not have agreed with that were going on inside of the work environment.
And I think everyone understands, because you sign a contract doesn't mean that your employer can racially discriminate against you or sexually discriminate against you or any of that. But I am curious, Amy, in a case like this, in a claim like this, how important is the wording of the contract he signed with the NFL? As an example, if there's some broad editorial deal in his contract that NFL gets to dictate the tenor of his stories or what stories he's writing or whatever it may be, would that be an important piece of this if they have that kind of power? Because I think you could look at this and maybe see, the NFL doesn't like being investigated by their own people. So I'm sure they had an issue with that. How important is this contract that he signed?
Well, it's important if he's operating outside of the scope of what he was hired to do, then that could be a legitimate grounds to not renew his contract. On the other hand, if he's, for example, something he mentioned in his complaint, writing a column, and he's not allowed to say certain opinions, and by its very nature, a column is editorial, but he's not allowed to say certain opinions because it's race-based, that could go in his favor, right? Because he could say, well, I'm bringing my personal perspective as a Black person to this column, and this is a race-based issue. It falls within the scope of my duties because I was hired to cover social activism and racial injustice and personal stories. And now I'm not allowed to say things because people who are white in power might be offended. Well, now I'm being discriminated against based on my race because they're integral to my personal opinions. So you can argue, any which way for this. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It doesn't mean that he would win or lose. It all really comes down to convincing a court that there was a pattern here and that the discrimination was race-based and that it wasn't just something that was going on that could have affected any other employee if they were similarly situated in Jim's position.
Amy Dash of Odyssey is our guest, and you can follow her on social at Amy-TV. I know your schedule's tight today, Amy. Thank you for fitting in some time, and we will definitely have you on again soon.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah, it was nice being on with you guys again. I missed speaking to you about these topics.
I know.
It seems
we got to do it again soon.
There's something new around the corner practically every week.
There's always a sports legal angle that we can get you on for, Amy. Thank you so much for doing this.
I don't know. I kind of enjoyed the quiet. I've been
Have a good one.
Thanks, Amy.
Take care, guys.
Good to see you. Amy Dash has been our guest.
There's always a lawsuit
great.
right around the corner. That's what I always like to say.
Right.
And I'm sure Amy understands that as well.
She had to be off to another meeting or interview there. But like Chad, she's mentioning the editorial decisions by NFL, NFL.com, I'm thinking, well, it's really difficult to find much critical angles from the league on their site. And that's more of the editorial path under the entire umbrella. Again, just thinking out loud, than it is one specific reporter.
Look, I think it's bad. It's bad practice for a company to hire an opinionist or a columnist and then say you can't have this opinion or that opinion or write about it. So that's bad form by the NFL if that's the case.
But it's your typical conflict of interest.
That's gonna, but it's
there are a lot of former
not just
reporters that are now working for teams.
Yeah, if I suddenly announced, hey, I've got this story that's going to put Fox in a negative light that I'd like to research more and talk about on this show that's owned by, I would understand that's not going to happen, right? You don't report on or investigate your own employer and your own company. So Hutton, I have to believe, and that's why I asked the question about the legitimacy of the contract and how important it is, that the NFL and all of their knowledge and all their business had to have some pretty foolproof language in a contract that says we have editorial control. Yeah. And if there's an issue with something that you're writing about, we have the ability to change you on some of that stuff or you see what I'm saying? And I get what Amy's saying about, well, if they're saying don't ever write about race, that does kind of play into his whole thing about what the NFL is trying to avoid. But to me, it's just more of a matter. It's less a race issue and more you are employed by the league and you're writing things and asking questions to the bosses of the league they don't want asked. And that this is not the forum to do this at.
But let's also just state the obvious. There are a number of NFL organizations that have hired one of the beat writers in their city, longtime beat writers that are now working for the organization. Yeah. There is an inherent conflict of interest there with reporter and team, but they're employed by the team. So it's just, to me, it's an obvious deal that you accept if you're a reporter that is then going to work for the NFL or work for any league or pro team, college, university, whatever it is.
You give up the right to be super critical when you take that job. Like your example of when beat writer goes to team website to cover team.
Yeah, they're not tracking down
the team the same way.
They're not tracking down the weekend arrest or the DUI.
Or they're not crushing. They're not writing an opinion piece crushing the coach.
Some owners don't mind being blunt. Jerry Jones,
But you see my point. If the owner had a problem with it,
no doubt,
then you understand that you're not going to write that stuff.
But I would feel like the reporter would know going in that's the inherent understanding.
That's what I don't understand about all this. If this is such an important issue to Jim Trotter, he is writing and covering these things now for The Athletic.
Right.
So you get to continue to do this, and he's already written the column about his time at NFL Network and NFL.com and how poor it was because they were covering up. Well, you're getting the job accomplished there. The lawsuit on top of it, to me, seems like a guy who's mad he didn't get to keep his job at NFL.com.
Based on what he was told in December.
Right.
Versus March.
Again,
which was right after he
if you've been wrong by an employer and you have the ability to go write and get your stuff read or seen elsewhere, and clearly he's good enough to get another job with The Athletic.
He's very good at what he does.
Then he could go about and still write and report and talk about it to anyone who will listen about the ills of the NFL. If you think that it's a messed up system or whatever, you can continue to do that. The lawsuit to me feels like it's hollow. And that there's nothing that's really going to come of it. Because what he's doing is investigating his own employer.
Right.
And they're not going to allow that.
But I understand, I believe some of what's in here in the lawsuit claims. Like, for instance, the NFL wanted the Bills and Bengals to resume the game where Damar Hamlin was had the cardiac arrest and went to the hospital, and the players didn't want to do it, coaches didn't want to do it. And the NFL has denied that, and they're very sensitive to questions about it, where they say nothing by answering just with a quick statement or whatever it is. We were talking about that on the show the week after that took place on the field in Cincy. And it didn't go through the coaches. It wasn't the officials that tried to get it going 5 minutes or for a 5-minute warm-up or whatever it was. Chad, I have seen the mechanics of how this works with the longest game in NFL history in Miami, where we had 2.5 different weather delays in South Beach. It was this time of year, a handful of years ago.
Yep.
2017.
Mike Vrabel's first game, right?
2018. And yeah, exactly. And there is an NFL observer at every stadium, and their role from the press box is to be the liaison to the NFL office, to the commissioner. And the only way you can postpone a game, it's not through the officials, it's not through a team and different. Even the preseason game at the Hall of Fame game, when the slipping was taking place on the turf, the commissioner has to agree that game's not taking place. So if they're going back and forth and having either conversations, brainstorming, whatever, that has to be the line of communication if you're going to resume the game or not. The commissioner is the authority on that.
Do you buy his claim?
That doesn't surprise me that he knows about this. It's been reported by others too.
Yeah.
And the NFL has been sensitive when asked about it. So of course they're not going to want reporters that they employ doing that job because they're responding in the way they are to others and other outlets. That makes sense, even though Trotter is on the money, I believe, with the only person that could call it or make them play again. Trey Wallace next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted and how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see.
how can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old taste of the Southern Legend.
Glad you're with us for Hot Mic on the Thursday edition, live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on, and Chad's in the chat on YouTube. Search out OutKick and join him there.
Man, the chat is it's varying today from topic to topic.
Oh.
I can't keep up. Like, it's one thing, and then it's a few threads, and then someone else starts something else, and it's kind of like our conversations with Trey Wallace. You just never know where it's going to go.
That's right.
That's what the chat is today.
They're joining Chad there in the chat, and Trey Wallace joins us here live on the show. Trey, good to see you.
What's up, guys? How are y'all? Hope Chad's managing that chat well.
I'm doing my best. I can't nuke people out of here. Space. So, usually people kind of stay in line, but there are times where I've wanted to nuke a few people, and I don't have any power. I don't have the nuclear codes for the chat, is what I'm saying. So I can't do it.
Doesn't sound like you at all, Chad.
Yeah, like if you run the team website, like the fan site, the moderators have the ability, like if someone's saying something they don't like, they just knock it out. I can't do that. So I feel powerless, but all powerful, because I can also sort of, get the tempo of the chat going the entire time. You know how it goes,
so
Trey.
You're telling me you're not Pac-12 Commissioner George Killicoff?
I'm not. Yes.
Trey Wallace with us, our OutKick senior college football reporter. But we're going to start in the NFL. The mysterious move that the Rams made, they've placed Stetson Bennett, their backup QB, on the non-football injury list, and they did this yesterday. There's not much detail to this, which allows everyone to assume that it's something that is more individual-based than it is injury while training, and something that the Rams either aren't pleased with, or that they're willing to work with Stetson on.
It is it's a weird situation because of the fact that he didn't dress the first week of the season because it was an injury, shoulder injury. You guys know the NFL, but they didn't put him on injured reserve. So then Sean McVay holds a press conference yesterday, like they do out in Los Angeles, and points out that Stetson Bennett is on the non-football injury list, meaning that the situation did not happen inside the facility, and it did not happen at an organized event within the Rams, meaning whatever has happened with Stetson Bennett happened outside the facility and didn't have anything to do with the Los Angeles Rams. So whether that is him paintballing and getting himself hurt or anything, got into an accident, whatever.
It doesn't sound like that, though, based on the tone and the quote from McVay, where he's saying, some things are bigger and more important, and out of respect of the particulars.
Respect for the situation, there's a lot of talk like that.
We're going to keep it in-house. And then a follow-up was made, and what McVay said, come on, man, please, can we move on? That was his answer.
That's where it started to. That's why I started to fire off some text messages last night and trying to get to the bottom of it. And I'm not going to speculate on the messages that I received, but it doesn't sound football related at all. And you hate to see this, whatever. Either way, he misses 4 games. And so he can't play until week 6, even if he came back, to the team. And I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to speculate on here. But yes, I agree with you. The tone of Sean McVay made this sound like that it was a much bigger situation than what would happen on the football field. So that's why there's mystery surrounding this. And that's why I think people are looking for answers, but also doing it delicately at the same time.
Tennessee at Florida on Saturday night. It's, I think, the game of the weekend. A pretty light slate of games in this week 3 across college football. Tennessee is 6.5-point favorite. It's crazy going into this game. Tennessee's right where we thought they'd be at 2-0, headed to Gainesville. But in previewing this game, if you told me before the season that I'd be looking at it and saying not, how many points is Tennessee going to score and can Florida keep up, but hey, can Tennessee's defense hold down Florida the way Utah did? And can Tennessee win a low-scoring affair? This Tennessee passing game has given everyone, some reason for pause on this season and with this team. What do you think is going on, Trey? Is this just a quarterback and receivers trying to find footing together, or is there something bigger going on with that Tennessee offense?
I think we're really about to find out, because what you saw against Austin Peay, what you saw against Virginia, I mean, they're really not testing teams down the field through 2 games of the season. Some of the passes that you've seen from Joe Milton have just, in all honesty, just been inaccurate. Yeah, there were a couple drops, but, that's what happens when you're throwing the ball 118 miles per hour at a wide receiver. So I'm very interested to see now how Tennessee goes into Gainesville, and if things get a little wacky on offense, Chad, how does Joe Milton respond? I was talking with a couple people over at Tennessee this week about this, and one of the biggest concerns is, what if they miss on a couple downfield balls? What if they, miss out on a couple third downs, maybe because of a bad throw or something along them lines? How does Joe Milton handle this thing mentally in front of 90,000 fans in Gainesville at night? It's just going to be an electric atmosphere. And, Josh Heupel's trying to run this offense this year his way. He wants to go fast. He wants to go deep. He wants to test them. We all saw what it looked like last season. He wants to be able to do that. Right now, under Joe Milton, it's not like he can't complete the passes. It's just he's got to be more consistent with his throwing. And I think I went back and watched off that Austin Peay game. I'll just watch the offensive highlights, just offensive plays, not the whole game, because that would have been terrorizing to my soul. But overall, just in general, I think right now that Florida's got to be feeling at least decent, about, Tennessee coming to town. And where Tennessee beats Florida is on the running game. If they establish a rushing attack with Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, even though Dylan Sampson into that mix, and they can control it, I think that's a different story, and it gives Joe Milton some time, some success, some play action and whatnot. If Cooper Mays returning for Tennessee at center will help the offensive line, then they can switch Ollie Lane over. But what I'm getting at here is that, it's not the Tennessee offense that you saw last year, even though they want it to be. And maybe they break out of the shell this weekend against Florida. But if you're Florida, Chad, man, you stack 7 players in that box and you come after him and you make him Joe Milton make bad decisions. And you try to do that all night. Like you just give out. Don't worry about what happened to the secondary. If he connects on a couple throws, is what it is, but you force him into mistakes. And that's why I think Florida is going to make this thing interesting. And I think it's close. And, I'm not ever going to pick Tennessee to beat Florida in Gainesville until they actually do it. Then I'll come back and do it. They haven't done that in 20 years. So I just think this is going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a nice lead-in for Colorado and Colorado State. If you want to stay up at 10 o'clock tonight at night and watch Deion Sanders, which a lot of people will. But I just feel like right now, I think Tennessee should win this game, man. But there's a couple things that throw me off about this offense at the moment.
Trey Wallace with us. Trey, are you surprised to see the spread in the Georgia-South Carolina game? 28 points roughly, 27.5 to 28.5, depending on where you look. We haven't seen much to determine what Georgia is at quarterback based on opponent. And I'm curious about South Carolina because we know they can catch fire at quarterback pretty easily. They did so at the end of last season. It's on the road. It's in Athens. It's between the hedges. But 28 that's a high bar for this opponent that we saw in South Carolina just several months ago, and what they did to Tennessee and what they did to Clemson.
Jonathan, I'm taking South Carolina in the points, and I know that's a lot. I would take South Carolina in the points if it was 17. And I'm just saying that. What Georgia has done on offense this year has not amazed me yet with Carson Beck. They've started slow the first 2 games of the season. Mike Bobo was offensive coordinator. Yes, they beat up on teams in the second half that are horrible to begin with. But I'm just looking at it as a whole. Yeah, they've got a rushing attack. But I haven't seen Carson Beck and this offense yet really just explode for points. I mean, I know what the point totals have been and the scores have been in the last couple of games, but they've started slow. I've sat there and watched them play. So you get Spencer Rattler into a situation where that young man gets hot, and South Carolina starts completing some passes down the field. South Carolina could score. Now we're going up against the Georgia defense, South Carolina is, so it makes it interesting how much time Spencer Rattler is going to have, Jonathan, but I don't like this spread. I feel like South Carolina is better than a 28-point underdog at Georgia.
How important is this game for Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, hosting Kansas State? K-State 15th in the country, only a 3.5-point favorite. Missouri's getting them at home. This would be a big-time win for him to get this season kickstarted. It feels like the time is now for him in that program to do something.
This is it. Like, this is the point, Chad. You brought it up, man. You're playing a team like this that you have the ability to win. We've seen what they've been doing in recruiting. That's great, but you're going to have to prove yourself in an out-of-conference game, and what better way to do it against Kansas State team that, in my opinion, could be a problem in the Big 12 this year. So, and the quarterback situation is still kind of up in the air. Is it Brady Cook? Is it Sam Horn? Are we going back and forth in this thing? Eli Drinkwitz needs this win on Saturday. He needs to be able to put his foot down and say, okay, we can do this. Now let's lead this thing on into the rest of the SEC season and try to find 4 to 5 wins. I just, you said Tennessee, Florida's, the premier game of the day on the schedule. I think this one's probably, either second or third, just from the way things stand, the standpoint of it, and also the ramifications of this game for Eli Drinkwitz. They don't need to get beat at home by Kansas State by 14 points, and they got to figure out their quarterback situation right now. And if this is Brady Cook's team, because if not, it's going to be a long season in Columbia, Missouri. So this is a game I'm fascinated to watch on Saturday. I'm with you.
LSU at Mississippi State, 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff. I'm excited to see this one also, to see how LSU responds to a week 1 blowout loss to Florida State.
This is where that line also gets me here. I think Will Rodgers only threw the ball 17 times last weekend. 17 times again. He was throwing the ball 50 times last year from Mike Leach. Now I'm interested to see if Zach Arnett says, okay, we're gonna let you open this thing up. Go pass the ball. Try to take advantage of LSU secondary. Let's see how we can open it up. Give you a little time. Maybe set a running game up. I'm not picking Mississippi State to win this game, but LSU's not walking into Starkville and just going to beat up all over the Bulldogs. I think Will Rodgers and this offense, I think they're probably going to switch it up from what they did against Arizona last week. Maybe play a little cat and mouse, with what they did to Arizona, and now they're going to play LSU. I think this is a fun game, and I do think this comes down, to the fourth quarter. I'm very interested to see what LSU looks like against a much tougher opponent. We saw them against Florida State. It was bad in the second half. I don't care what they did against Grambling. Now I care about going on the road, playing an SEC defense, and especially a Zach Arnett-led SEC defense.
Trey, we've literally got a minute left. I don't want to cut you off with that, but Bama on the road, a true road game in a group of 5 opponent. First time since 2003 that Bama has been on the road against one of those teams. And this is South Florida, a team and a program that's 5-20 since 2020. And they're doing it based on recruiting. They want to be visible in the state of Florida.
Take the points in South Florida. I don't trust the Alabama quarterback situation right now, but also I'm going to say this too. I think South Florida scores a couple of touchdowns. If everybody remembers, The offensive coordinator for Tennessee last year was Alex Golis. He was helping Josh Heupel run that offense. Who did they beat last year? Alabama. How did he know how to beat them? Look how they spread out the wide receivers. The head coach now at South Florida, Alex Golis. He's at least going to know how to. Does he have the players? We're going to find out. I'm not saying Alabama's losing. I just don't think they win by like 38 points in South Florida. So
I don't think Jalen Hyde is on that South Florida roster, unfortunately, for Alex Golis. That's one problem.
Come on, Chad. I'm not calling the upset.
Oh,
I'm just saying don't take Bama and 38 points.
I said 5-20, actually 5-30 since 2020. The Bulls' record.
It's a lot of points, I will say, to Trey's point. That's
Trey,
a lot of points for Alabama to cover.
Thank you, man. And we look forward to your coverage on the site this weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Trey Wallace, senior college football reporter at OutKick.com. Coming up in about 25 minutes, Armando Salguero will be with us. We'll talk NFL. And in 5 minutes, we discuss the 0-2 teams potentially in the NFL. Plus, we get back to prime time.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there, probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself.
I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro. There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Hell yeah, baby. I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there a dream candidate, someone that you think could save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Just like that, second hour is here, Thursday edition. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. Join us on YouTube, streaming live there. If you're listening live on this great radio partner, we say thank you. You can always search us on YouTube by typing in OutKick and subscribing to the channel. Get all the shows across the network. Plus, you can be alerted to when there's added content, whenever the shows go live. You get the notification. You can also join us live in the chat. Chat is, when I say it's a feverish typing and goal for him to get as many answers in during a break. He's been doing nothing, but it sounds like you're writing an essay.
I am. I'm working on my essay. This is kind of like my Monroe doctrine that I'm working on over here today. I joked
Your
about
dossier.
not being able to nuke someone. Yeah, it's my manifesto.
You may find one in there.
Someone's got to clarify how you go from essay or diary to manifesto. Anyway, I joked about not being able to nuke someone from there, and the moment I did, like a bot showed up and just put letters down, 47 threads in a row, and we need that nuked. But I don't know
AI
how to.
is a subscriber apparently. What you're saying?
We're back on it now, though. Now we're back to normal post Hutton.
Armando Salguero joins us in 20 minutes. Ryan Leaf joins us in the third hour, coming up in about an hour and 15 minutes from now. We will have him on. We're looking forward to previewing the NFL slate of games with Armando from OutKick.com in 15 to 20 minutes. Chad, speaking of the Week 2 schedule, of course, half the league is 0-1 after Week 1. There are only 2 games with half the league 0-1 that feature 0-1 versus 0-1. Colts, Texans, Chargers, Titans are the 2 matchups. That's it. But there are a ton of teams. If you look at the list, there are several teams that, we lost on the money line or lost on the point spread based on what we expected in the matchup from several quarterbacks and franchises that routinely win as of late, that are 0-1 and staring down an 0-2 start potentially. In the NFC, not many. Giants, Cardinals, Seahawks, Vikings, Bears, Panthers. In the AFC, Patriots, Bills, Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Steelers, Bengals, Titans, Texans, Colts. That's quite the list, especially considering, mentioning the Vikings. Vikings play tonight on the road in Philadelphia. The Bills come off their loss to the Jets and Zach Wilson, and now will face the 1-0 Las Vegas Raiders at home. I think that's a bounce-back game, potential. Chiefs are on the road in Jacksonville, and the Chargers are on the road here in Nashville Sunday. So big Bengals. Bengals are another one, as well as the Steelers facing an 0-2 start. I'm going to ask Ryan Leaf about the team that faces the most detriment if they have the 0-2 start versus the team that's likely clawing out of it regardless based on their talent. But a lot of teams there, Chad, with expectations that need to be met or, wanting to make another run in the playoffs, that the 0-2 start traditionally doesn't set you up very well for postseason play. A bit better now, though, because of the 7th team in each conference that gets in as a wild card.
Well, really tough for a team like Minnesota.
Yes.
You get Tampa Bay at home. There's so much talk about how bad Tampa Bay is going to be. They were clearly upset with that, with some of their post-game comments about how it was just a foregone conclusion they were going to be terrible. Everybody had a lot of fun joking and laughing at Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask throw balls during training camp where it was just nowhere near one after the other. And they went up there and they beat Minnesota. Now you got to face the Eagles on the road on a Thursday night. That's tough circumstances for Minnesota trying to avoid 0-2.
And we'll hit on this later. But on a short week now, after the quarterback that you faced in week 1 admitted that he had figured out your defensive signals, you got to change those up too.
Not good all the way around.
Week of 2 days of practice and then a travel date yesterday with a game tonight in Philly. Chad, game on Saturday starting late. Prime time is backed up a bit. Colorado State kicking off at 10 p.m. Eastern. And I can't wait to see the rating on this, truly, because of the hype and the buildup of both Fox and ESPN sending their shows, Big Noon Kickoff and College Game Day, to Boulder for Colorado State.
I'd be interested to see. Here's an important ratings window battle that I really want to see come Monday morning. Colorado, Nebraska, and Texas and Alabama, virtually the same number.
Yes.
Slightly more people watched Texas, their win over Alabama, than watched the Big Noon Kickoff game. But they were right there, dead even. What are the ratings? What do they look like between Tennessee, Florida at 7 p.m. and then right after that, Colorado State? Do more people tune in late night for Colorado State than Tennessee, Florida?
Yeah.
Which is the best game of this week. I think Tennessee, Florida is going to have a bigger number.
I'd love to see the first half versus second half rating of Colorado State.
I would like to see the peak of both.
Yes.
And see what it looks like. That'll be an interesting one to watch. Here's what's interesting about Deion Sanders right now in Colorado football. Well, pretty much everything to the sporting public, because 60 Minutes is going to be there. Not just Big Noon Kickoff, not just ESPN College Game Day. You've got First Take on ESPN going live from there. I know Pat McAfee's going to do a show wherever Game Day goes on Friday. Just saw an announcement that The Rock is going to join Pat McAfee live in Boulder, Colorado. The Rock is going to the game. Over 100 high school prospects, some of the best in the country, are going to go to this game. Cameras are going to be everywhere. Everyone's going to be watching it. So if you're Jay Norvell, head coach at Colorado State, now would be the time to try to get some of that attention on you and your program. And he did so by saying, again, it's a funny diss from him, but basically saying, hey, when I met with ESPN, I made sure to take off my sunglasses and hat because my mom and dad taught me to do that. That's how you treat people with respect. Throwing shade at Deion Sanders. And I don't care if they hear about this in Boulder. No, you should care if they hear about it in Boulder. Why? Because if they hear about it in Boulder, they're going to hear about it everywhere. You never feud down. You don't want to do that. If you're Deion Sanders, I don't think it serves you well to go after Jay Norvell and pitiful little Colorado State. But if you're Jay Norvell and Colorado State and you're building a program and you want some attention, this is brilliant. I applaud him for feuding up with Deion Sanders. Now is the time to get a little bit of shine on your own program. And I think doing that is just smart. It's good promotion. It's good business for Jay Norvell. Everyone's quick to react and say, well, now Deion's really going to lay the hammer to Colorado State. He was doing that anyways. Deion Sanders isn't going into this game tiptoeing, saying, he's got a shirt he's wearing that says, ain't hard to find. A guy that wears a shirt that says, ain't hard to find, and wears sunglasses and hat everywhere he goes, isn't putting the backup quarterback in to take a knee late in the game, regardless of what Jay Norvell said. Jay Norvell could have offered up a prayer circle the way Matt Rule did with Deion Sanders pregame, and it wouldn't have mattered. He's going to try to hang 60 on him. That's what Deion Sanders does. He's going to continue to do it. That's how his program operates. I think it's smart for Jay Norvell to throw a little shade at Deion Sanders and get a little bit of the talk about this game off of him and on to Norvell and Colorado State for a little bit. I think it's smart because he probably sensed people weren't talking about him or his team at all in this matchup. Everyone's going to watch it because Deion and Colorado's 2-0, and he took his shot. I applaud him for it. I see nothing wrong with it.
While nothing really changes in the mindset of the game, he may dance on the grave a bit more or a bit longer in postgame.
Yeah.
But everyone was dancing on Colorado's grave at a one-win team a year ago. And also, how do you feud up if you're Deion? It's coming in the next 2 weeks, program-wise.
Yeah, USC.
And Oregon.
Yeah, both of them.
And on the road, by the way. And then you feud up as well by upsetting one of those, but you also do it through recruiting. And that's where you feud up with the other programs that are not on your schedule. Because they'll start chirping.
Well,
they will.
It's also, here's the thing about Deion, and we saw it with his son. They can just make stuff up.
Yes.
I mean, they're going to dance on your grave regardless. You could say nothing. You could say nothing but nice things about it. They're going to dance on your grave. That is becoming their MO. That's what they're going to do. If there's not a slight that exists, like we saw with Nebraska, they're going to make one up to make it personal. We sat there and watched Shedeur Sanders lie about Matt Rule and his team and what he said and what they were doing post-game. And people just chuckle about it and laugh. It doesn't have to be true for them to play that way, to go against someone. They can just make it up. But they've done it before.
It wasn't Deion that had the comments, though, post-game is what I mean. It was Shedeur.
Yeah.
And it would be more Deion as well post-game if you run up the score. And they will try to do so.
Yeah. I just think they're going to do so whenever they get a chance on anyone. I don't know that there's anyone that Deion Sanders respects enough not to run the score up on them.
Yeah, and you're right. Every week will be a soap opera in some way.
And if there's a coach he respects enough not to do it, he would still – those coaches are at programs that are so good that he would absolutely take his shot to run up the score if he ever had a chance to on one of those teams.
But he may be able to run up the score in recruiting and not just in the high school aspect. I'm saying in the transfer portal, because players are going to want to go follow him based on what they're doing now and how they'll turn over the roster again and again.
I think what also this is all going to spark, it's not just now Deion Sanders. We see this with Norvell.
Yeah.
I never heard Jay Norvell speak before today, right? I mean, that's just being honest. Like, didn't pay a lot of attention when he was at, I think, Nevada before. Not paying a lot of attention to him at Colorado State. I've never heard the guy in an interview until that.
By the way, Colorado State plays in Middle Tennessee next week.
You're going to get the best sound bites out of everyone else.
This is the week to do it. You're right.
Yeah, not just Deion though. Like everyone. Matt Rule had an impassioned sound bite the day after, when they get back on Monday with his press conference after Shedeur Sanders called him out. So everyone's going to get on this. And when someone curb stomps Colorado, whether it be Oregon, USC, or whoever, those coaches are going to say more than they normally say.
They do, but you're going
which is going to lead to more entertainment.
The more I think about it, you're right about Norvell doing this because how much did the Rule presser after the game get covered? Not much compared to the post game with Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah,
and
the Rule didn't comment on it until Monday when asked about it because that was all taking place simultaneously.
Well,
when it was.
But by then, I guess the way I'm thinking is by then the networks are on to the next fight promotion by then.
Yeah.
So it's Deion setting the narrative for the new fight this coming week. It's almost a teaser or a promo or a preview, a movie preview as to why to buy into the fight.
Well, I mean, look, Colorado State's not getting any attention after this.
Right.
So it's the week of, the build up to it. You're right, the fight promotion, the Don King aspect of this, getting ready, Dana White promoting a big fight. You want to get your attention the week leading up to the game because the moment the clock hits 0, ESPN College Game Day is not rolling into Fort Collins the next week, even if they beat Deion in Colorado this week.
They're telling us they're there for the first time since 2003. 1996.
1996, yeah.
1996. Any opponent that they were playing this week, game day would be there.
It's nuts to think that
the
Colorado of my childhood with Bill McCartney was a factor every year. And even in 1994, you've got the Cordell Stewart to Michael Westbrook Hail Mary. I think that was the year at Michigan in the Big House.
The year after, you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy to me that 30 years pass before College Game Day. A game is important enough at Colorado to have College Game Day there on campus.
The fact that both networks are there, just in perspective, like other matchups that one or ESPN could have picked, and then they could have gone to the Cent Game Day, and they probably will again, USC coming to Boulder in week 5. But they passed up on Tennessee, Florida, Georgia.
They didn't pass up on much, I will say. We'll get into my college football games of the week tomorrow. But when I unveil this top 10 list, it's very weak. So this was a good week for them to do this.
It is, but they passed up on SEC matchups.
Yeah, this is like the week they went to Montana State
and the future,
a year ago in November, right? They picked the light week.
And they're picking the Pac-12 that is dead in the water. Again, but they do have the contract. They're airing the game. But they're sending the entire crew there. More than just game day. What you mentioned, First Take, and I'm sure McAfee will be there probably tomorrow. He was there last week as well for game day on site.
Here's where you feel bad. So I
With
get
the
it
show.
for you. You know, ESPN has the game that night too, so that's good promotion for them to have college game day there. Big noon kickoff and Fox. They decided early on, this is our gravy train, the Deion Sanders story. So they're going to keep riding it out. So it's smart
because we were expecting two blowouts.
Here's where you feel left out of the party, which maybe they don't care because they just got blown up by Kansas on a Friday night. Big noon game of the big noon kickoff this week. The big noon game on Fox. Penn State at Illinois. How many chances is Champaign, Illinois going to have the pregame show?
You're right.
For Fox there, because usually they go to the game they're airing.
This is the only
and they
time,
skipped right past
this
that.
is the only time this is the first time that they're not at the game that they're
the game
going into.
So, I mean, look,
or on a different campus.
Nationally, we're not as concerned about Illinois.
Right.
But if you're
From
the Illinois football program and Brett Bielema and the city of Champaign, pretty cool to have that on your campus because you're not going to be playing a lot of big noon kickoffs on Fox. Illinois is not this year.
You wouldn't think
in that
so.
Big Ten package. But you get one, and on that one, they're going back to Boulder.
There are some that are predicting Illinois to win that game as an upset.
I'm
not doing that.
It is a pretty substantial line. I was just
It
looking
was
at it. 14.5. Penn State's favored by 14.5.
I would take Penn State in the points.
I doubt I'll play it, but I think Penn State wins pretty comfortably in this game.
Coming up, Armando Salguero is about to join us in 4 minutes, and a lot to discuss across the NFL. We'll certainly get his review of the weekend in the Meadowlands, where he was.
Was he there?
Yeah, he was at MetLife for both games.
Nice.
For the Cowboys' destruction of the G-men, and then he was in attendance and covered the Rodgers injury.
Is he going to have a line like O.J. Simpson had about the game?
No.
Hopefully not.
No, he won't.
I don't want to have to be issuing any apologies on behalf of Armando for our viewers.
Yeah, different expectations for Armando, who's great. He joins us next on Hot Mic.
Hey, Davey Hutton of OutKick here. We are at SEC Media Days 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to go talk to some players, see what they have to say. What's the best purchase you've made from an NIL deal so far?
Tag watch right here.
Far.
Best purchase? I probably just give it back to my son for real. That's probably my best purchase every time.
Man, pay my truck off. Definitely.
A house. My wife and I bought a house, so that's been huge. Being able to save that money up and buy a house.
This chain here.
The best purchase? I'd probably say helping my mom out with school.
Ooh, the best purchase? Probably the shoes. The shoes I got on right now.
The best purchase I made, well, the best NIL deal I've had is free steaks from Marksbury Farms, so keep me fed and beefed up.
With it?
Purchase? Probably a new golf bag. Or recently I played TPC Sawgrass this past weekend, and that was from I used that money from a deal I made, so that's up there too.
Probably getting my sister through college, helping my family out a lot. That's probably my best purchase I've done.
Best purchase? Probably my my mom and dad anniversary gift.
The best purchase I've made? I got a yoga mat the other day, and that's helped me a lot. Just flexibility and everything like that, so probably that.
Best purchase? My smile.
Best purchase? I would say my best purchase was having my school supply drive.
Landon, what is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Remember the Titans for sure. Sport movie, I say Love and Basketball. That's my favorite.
Got to be Remember the Titans for sure.
Remember the Titans. I mean, it's top movie ever.
Probably Longest Yard.
I'd probably say Like Mike with Bow Wow.
Yeah.
My favorite sports movie? Remember the Titans.
Air Bud.
Perfect answer, actually.
I really don't know. I don't have one.
Movie? I haven't seen many, but does Sandlot count?
Favorite sports movie of all time? Probably Coach Carter.
Ooh, sports movie. Probably The Express.
Happy Gilmore.
The Little Giants.
Amari, what was your most favorite sports movie growing up?
Remember the Titans.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
I I don't know the other one, but definitely not Barbie.
Oppenheimer, gotta be. I'm not against the Barbie movie though. I tried to recommend it. I was shut down pretty fast.
Oppenheimer. Come on now. You don't need to ask me that question. Oppenheimer looks good though.
What's Oppenheimer?
It's a movie about the atomic bomb. It's the big thing that comes out this Thursday.
Yeah, probably that.
Oppenheimer.
Wait, what was the other one?
Barbie or Oppenheimer?
The opposite of Barbie. The opposite of Barbie. Yeah, so I'm not.
We're gonna see Oppenheimer and then follow with Barbie.
Solid choice.
I don't even know what Oppenheimer is. I don't want to see Barbie though.
Oppenheimer, 100%.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Say a little bit louder.
Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Oh, we're gonna watch both of them. Maybe on the same night. We'll probably watch. I think you gotta watch Barbie first, just so you're not. Oppenheimer might be a little too intense. You know what I'm saying? So you warm up with Barbie and then you go to the Oppenheimer.
The second one. Oppenheimer.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
Barbie.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on OutKick. Pleased to be joined by our favorite guest. Armando Salguero joins us. Always happy, always on top of all things NFL news.
Definitely coming to us from a
rumor.
different time zone because it's night wherever he is right now. It's dark outside of MetLife Stadium.
He's at MetLife, where he practically lived for week one. He was there. Well, so the opening act, Armando, good to have you back on the show. The opening act was Dallas and New York Giants, and wow, what a performance by Dallas, and what a dud by everything G-Men. And then the main event was Rodgers and the debut in the same stadium at MetLife. And Armando, back-to-back games where you had to be covering the weekend of surprise is how I would describe it. And, of course, the injury with Rodgers is detrimental.
Dark times in Gotham. Let's put it that way, right? So the Giants get blown out 40-0, and the Jets season is over because Aaron Rodgers goes down with an Achilles tear that puts him out for the season. And yes, you heard me right. The Jets season is over. I'm hearing a lot of, and I heard it in the locker room after the game, Zach Wilson is going to be fine. Zach Wilson is much better. Zach Wilson, very good. Zach Wilson, outstanding. Zach Wilson has improved behind Aaron Rodgers. No. Zach Wilson is an inexperienced, gotta rise 5 notches to be average type of quarterback. The Jets season, if they have to score points on offense, they better be able to run the ball because Zach is not going to win them a lot of games. Does that mean that they're going to be a terrible team? No, but the expectation wasn't don't be a terrible team. The expectation is let's go win a Super Bowl. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. I don't know that they have a playoff defense. They have playoff special teams. They don't have a playoff quarterback.
Because of accountability, right? Just saying that the offense wasn't the issue or let the rest of the team down in New England last November. And I totally agree with you, by the way. And it's because the organization's sentiment was they were a quarterback away from Super Bowl expectations. And it's hard to believe, at least from how I view it from the 30,000-foot view, that internally in that locker room, everyone was, elated that Rodgers came out of the cave and saw Gang Green, and they weren't going to have to go back to Zach Wilson for another season.
They were elated to see Mike White
and now,
a year ago when he came in.
Yeah, but
over Zach Wilson.
They also weren't sad whenever he signed with Miami. But I get what you're saying too. And now it's like 4 snaps in, we're back to where we were last year.
Yeah. And again, what you're going to hear and what we've been hearing out of the Jets locker room is Zach is much improved.
Yeah. With the no-look passes. That's great.
Okay. No, I get it. He maybe it's true. Maybe he's much improved. But the gap between much improved and good is still quite wide. And what I'm saying to you is they go to Dallas this weekend, I believe, to play the Cowboys. The Cowboys in 2 weeks are going to be the reason that New York football teams are very, very, very depressed, because the Dallas Cowboys defense is the real thing. Those guys, they come at you in waves. They cover well. I mean, there's not anything they can't do on defense well. They have speed. They've got big guys in the middle. The Jets will find out what it's like to be the New York Giants, I guess.
So the sentiment, at least they're pushing publicly, is Zach Wilson is much improved. And I was about to ask you, how did the Bills lose that game? And then I thought, well, my perception is Josh Allen has got to be much more improved when it comes to pushing the issue, making poor decisions when throwing the football, turning the ball over, and he's just not. Josh Allen is the reason why they lost that game, and that's also troubling for Buffalo.
Yeah, Josh Allen has 23 turnovers in the last 2 seasons to lead the NFL. Josh Allen has 84 turnovers in 6 seasons that he's been in the NFL, and that leads the NFL. What I'm saying to you is the statistics and our eyes are telling us Josh Allen needs to be more careful with the football. Josh Allen, to be a good quarterback, you have to throw it to your guys. How's that for some Confucius stuff right there? Throw it to your guys, Josh, and don't throw it to who? The other guys. And I saw a lot of hero ball and Josh Allen wanting to put the game away, thus gambling and risking what didn't need to be risked or gambled, because, I mean, 9 times out of 10, the Buffalo Bills should beat that team, the New York Jets, as long as Aaron Rodgers is not in the lineup, and he wasn't after 4 plays, which you just mentioned. And yet, Josh Allen found a way to lose a lead in the second half. He found a way to turn the ball over 4 times, because people forget he also fumbled twice and lost one of those. So 4 turnovers for a career high. I'm a big Josh Allen advocate, but what I saw on Monday night, that was cringy. That needs to be addressed immediately.
Armando, let's stay in that AFC East. How quickly we forget, because of all the drama surrounding Tua and the concussions and injuries and everything else, and him bulking up, and Ryan Clark calling him a fat stripper and all the other things this offseason, we forget just how good that offense is when Tua Tagovailoa is operating at a high level. And they showed that once again in L.A. against the Chargers on Sunday. Terrific win for the Dolphins to open the season.
And look, I'm going to be perfectly transparent and honest with you, okay? The Dolphins have a very good offense. It's not that good. The reason it was that good on Sunday is because Brandon Staley is bad. Brandon Staley, unlike the rest of the earth, apparently wasn't aware that Tyreek Hill is good. And so Brandon Staley, the head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers, decided, we're going to man cover Tyreek Hill like a lot. And even after he's torched us and I'm wearing stripe marks of like I'm burning. I've got flames on my chest. We are going to continue to man cover Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill toasted them for 215 yards. And so what I'm saying to you is, if Brandon Staley was an average to middling head coach in the NFL, he would have adjusted. Understand, he's not the defensive coordinator, but he is the defensive coach.
Yeah.
Brandon Staley's background is defense. And so while I'm with you, the Dolphins offense looked really good. I mean, it looked dynamic. I also understand that it might not look that way against Bill Belichick. Just saying. I mean, my guess is Bill Belichick will watch that film, mumble some guttural sound under his breath about Brandon Staley being dopey, and do something different and make the Dolphins beat them, with Jalen Waddle. And by the way, Jalen Waddle's
Pretty
very
good.
Yeah. It's a bad choice that he would be making, but you know what? It's a worse choice that let Tyreek Hill run all over the field with one guy chasing him.
At least Tua's throwing Tyreek Hill the football for the entire game. What is Minnesota thinking? Where Justin Jefferson, 7 catches, 138 in the first half, 2 targets in the second half. What happened there? And that leads us to tonight's matchup, Vikings on the road against Philadelphia for Thursday Night Football.
Perfect example of the other team makes adjustments and makes the quarterback, who is a paint by numbers kind of guy, Kirk Cousins, he decides, well, they've got my main guy covered. I have to go elsewhere. My progressions, my reads tell me to go elsewhere with the football. And that's what Kirk Cousins did. But you know why that happened? Because the guys in the other locker room got tired of chasing Justin Jefferson. That's what most NFL teams do. You torch them and they reach for the nearest fire extinguisher to try to put themselves out.
I'm reading the quote as you say this from Jefferson this week. I feel like I wasn't really covered that much in the second half to where I couldn't get the ball. And hey, double teamed or not, I'm throwing the ball to him.
Fair. And he has shown us multiple times that even when he's covered, he's not covered because he's Justin Jefferson and arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, if not top 2. So, and I get that. Justin Jefferson thinks he's covered when he's under a blanket. Not covered, rather, when he's under a blanket. So
fair.
Whatever he said, thanks, Justin, but you were.
Looking ahead to week 2, Armando, and just thinking about Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and staring down a potential 0-2 start in that division. Joe Burrow remains on the injury report. He's a full participant in practice, but he's sore. His calf is sore, according to both Burrow and his head coach. This is not trending in the right direction, just simply because we know Rodgers also had a calf injury, and we saw the Achilles injury as well.
Yeah. Joe Burrow is one of those guys that needs to practice to be good. I mean, he's great.
Yes.
Okay. Can we just agree? But some guys need the work. They need the work during the week to be fully there, fully aware, fully engaged, and fully ready. And he hasn't been practicing, and he obviously missed practically all of training camp because of the calf injury. This is the 3rd year in a row that he misses. I think we've talked about this, that he misses a good deal of training camp for one reason or another. Last year, it was the appendicitis. The year before that, it was, he was coming back from the ACL injury. So it's always something, man, with this guy. But my guess is that by the end of the season, he will show up. The question is, does the alarm clock sound for him early enough to where the Cincinnati Bengals, factor in the lead of the AFC North? Because the Cleveland Browns are no joke. They have a really good roster. The reason that they weren't that good last year is because their quarterback was terrible and the quarterback situation was not great, even when Jacoby Brissett was playing. So you gotta wake up, Joe, and you gotta get that thing right, because it's just all I can say to you is that the Bengals will factor by the end of the season. Now, the Steelers, they ran into the best team in the NFL. Who did I pick to win the Super Bowl this year?
Was it the Buffalo Bills?
No.
It was the 49ers.
Yeah.
I say the Bills because I picked the Bills to beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. So that doesn't look great after week one. But it is only 1 week.
Right, exactly. Week 2 is the trend. Week 1 is the overreaction week in the NFL. Week 2 is we find the trends.
Yeah.
And, Kenny Pickett, you mentioned the Steelers. Okay, so Kenny, you were really good in the preseason. As a matter of fact, your 158.3 or whatever it was is like a perfect quarterback rating. Is it 158.3 or 158.6? Whatever. But you were like, you did not look marvelous in that first game. You looked like poo. And so if you do it again, now we've got a trend.
Armando Salguero has been our guest. Up against it, Armando. You're always the best. Thank you for joining us. We love this visit each and every week.
I will continue this week now to practice my Nando impersonation, because you two guys look marvelous.
Marvelous coverage at OutKick.com on the NFL. You can get that from Armando Salguero.
More Billy Crystal on this show, that's for sure.
We got headlines and much more straight ahead here on Hot Mic.
Right now, I mean, your wife's not listening. I don't have any, but I'm asking you, how many OnlyFans accounts do you have? Do you follow?
Zero, Dan. Okay. Listen, I'm busy. I have a lot going on. I don't have time for the OnlyFans investigations.
My brother was trying to raise $250 million. This is a true story, for a huge project in Northwest Indiana, our hometown, which he got done. He got approached by an agent of 2 OnlyFans girls. Apparently, they're superstars in the world of OnlyFans. They had so much money, they wanted to know, could they get involved in this project? That's how much money these women have. They wanted to give millions to add to this project. My brother then researched OnlyFans, and he's like, yeah, I think we'll go to other places. I think we'll go to different banks. I think we'll go to private equity firms before we go to OnlyFans. But that's the kind of green a woman like, what's her name? Amy
Garcia.
Amy, yeah, good for her, man. She's raking in the dollars, right?
Oh yeah, these are millionaires. These are millionaires, multi-millionaires, Dan.
Yeah, and I love America. What else we got here? Let me have a look here. This is a good
Go ahead.
segment. It's one of my favorite segments.
This is going to do big numbers, Dan.
I think so. And particularly if we could speak Spanish with
here we go.
Amiga que bella. Oh, boy. Now, who is this young lady?
As you know, as a screen caps readers know, this is Salma Hayek. I mean, come on. She just turned, her birthday was just last weekend, I believe 57. I've lost track. She's in her 50s. Ageless wonder. Whenever we do Salma Hayek content, goes absolutely bonkers. Good for her, Dan. I'm calling on these women to quit with the whole yoga stuff. I'm calling on the women to stop with the fake outrage over, politics. Get back to the bread and butter, Dan. These women were the heroes of the 90s and early 2000s. Salma Hayek has stayed true to her fans. She stayed out of politics. She stayed out of making candles for her girlfriends for candle nights at their houses. This is Salma Hayek 101. She goes to the ocean. She knows how to produce content.
She does. And you know what? That's a skill that I wish more women that look like Salma Hayek had, knowing how to produce content. I got to tell you, her quick roll, and it was a very quick roll, in, what was it? What the hell is it's one of my favorite shows, 30 Rock, was unbelievable. Even in a nurse's gown, she was outstanding. And don't call me a pig, people. I'm celebrating the beauty of older women today, as is the great Joe Kinsey.
Yep.
Joe, what else do we got? Who else do we got?
Well, I'm not in control of this, so let's see what they do here. Let's see what they throw on the screen.
See, our guys are so excited by what's going on here.
Yeah. Dan, this is great. We always love, well, it's football season, so we're happy, right? And then we come up with these names on the back of jerseys, like West Virginia once had Dingle and Barry on their team, and they sat on the sideline together, and it was Dingle, Barry. Now you have Ham and Bacon. I think this is Iowa State. I mean, this is just great college football. You jump on these bandwagons of these names that just match up, and we have a laugh, Dan. That's what it's all about this time of year.
Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on. Coming up in 20 minutes. One big thing on every NFL game for week 2. And Ryan Leaf, he joins us in 40 minutes from right now. Always looking forward to that. On the call for a big college football matchup each week. And then throughout part of the season in the NFL slate, part of Westwood One's coverage for their radio broadcasts for the NFL matchups. Chad, an interesting discussion on Get Up on ESPN with Marcus Spears. And he's discussing Josh Allen and the relationship with Stephon Diggs. And we know there was some friction.
There was some preseason drama.
Friction. It didn't
Diggs.
last long, but maybe behind the scenes, who knows? But I'll read the quote, and reading between the lines, it's an interesting mindset. Let's put it that way. He's getting this from somewhere. Quote, the point is, Josh Allen is a turnover machine. As good as his ceiling is, we saw it. We saw it when they went to Kansas City and went toe-to-toe with Pat Mahomes. Could have made an argument he played better. We've seen it time and time again. That's why you don't talk about it in that context. But Josh Allen is playing football to where he's going to lose his top target in Stephon Diggs. Diggs is tired of having to get this dude's confidence back in games, telling him to be smart with the football. Don't do this, don't do that. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Josh Allen turning the football over like he does. The mention of Diggs there, always having to get Allen back in, and we saw that firsthand Monday night. Right before they got the football back to go get a field goal, which they did to tie the game, Diggs goes up to him and tries to snap him back into, hey, man, we're going to roll now. We got this. And it was Diggs that was targeted in that matchup on the opposite side of Sauce Gardner. That is what he's referencing. And Spears is saying this happens far too often to one of the best quarterbacks that we reference in the NFL today. In Josh Allen. He's not wrong, but I'm also using this in the context of what happened this offseason, Chad, and knowing there was something off there.
There's a lot going on from the way the season ended last year against Cincinnati at home.
Yeah.
Right? There's the whole thing about showed up to camp, then wasn't there, and then Sean McDermott having to talk about it, and now he's fine, maybe he stormed out of a practice or something. There's this air of instability with Stephon Diggs and how he feels about not necessarily the team, but his situation and maybe also the quarterback. And I can't think, Hutton, of many great quarterbacks throughout the history of the league that you have another player on the team having to go to them to get them refocused or tell them to be smart or tell them to get ready to go. Most of the great quarterbacks are the ones talking to everyone on the sideline. Hey, we're going to go school right here. They're going down the line, their offensive line, their receivers. They're getting them ready to go, not the other way around. I don't know that Josh Allen has to have that. Stephon Diggs pointing to his head and saying, get your head in it. I don't know that that's some grand statement. I just, as an observation, how many times do you see great quarterbacks having receivers tell them to get their head in the game on the sideline? That's a bit of a red flag for me for Josh Allen, who's a great talent. I just can't think of many times where
it's not top shelf quarterback.
There's a teammate going up and saying, hey, let's go. We're going to go school right here. Come on, we can do this. It's normally the quarterback picking everyone else up.
Stop thinking about the previous play kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Diggs was on the Von Miller podcast, the Voncast, and spoke about the situation. And, of course, Von Miller's a teammate, not available until mid-October or so based on the starting on PUP. He mentions listening to Drake at one point, and sometimes I do poke the bear, Diggs said. Majority of the time, it's Twitter or Instagram, and I say, listen, it's social media. Use it how you want, but we're all grown people. And as an adult, I feel like I'm honest in whatever I say, but I feel like at one point some people dive too deep into things or take it however they want. He was quoting a Drake song on social, and then he clears the air about how he feels about Allen. Quote, I'll also say I'm not responsible for how people react to things. I'm not responsible for how somebody feels. I'm more so responsible in how I carry it, and I'm just happy to have my quarterback. That was Diggs on the Voncast. Again, I don't think it's bubbled to the surface. I do think it's like a pot that's on the stove that's heating up, and it's starting to bubble at the bottom on the stove.
Yeah, and just reading between the lines, I think he's saying, I can't help it if the quarterback's overly sensitive about me or about something I said or I've done. That's not my job to worry about people's feelings, is kind of what he's saying when I say something or do something. It's not good. Josh Allen was very much not good in that game, and this whole reaction to it and seeing the receiver pointing to his head and saying, get your head back in the game, it's not becoming of a franchise quarterback capable of winning a Super Bowl.
And you know what?
I'll agree with Marcus Spears on that one.
Yeah, and I agree. And Armando's right. Week 2 is when we find out trends. The overreaction can turn into a trend or not. Lies and truths of what happens in Week 1. Sunday's game against the Raiders is exactly that for the Bills. A lot of those in the profession of sports wagering that make a living off of it, they're taking the Bills, just as Davey Hudson did yesterday in the elimination pool, to cover. Not just to win, but to cover, which is like 9 or 10 points.
The Raiders are coming
right
off an impressive win.
Yeah.
In Week 1 over the Broncos.
And they have a quarterback that wins. Not always pretty.
I think the Bills are going to be fine. I don't see them as an 0-2 team, and I think that they're going to bounce back in this game also. This is a good thing to bring up because we need to watch it now throughout the season. This whole Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen thing, and it's got me now not just watching the Josh Allen commercials during the commercial breaks, but watching his demeanor on the sideline during the game. Because I've never really thought of him as someone that needs to be picked back up or mentally restored during a game. But maybe that's the case.
Chad, something to follow as well, what we were following and what maybe we don't see in Buffalo or will based on Week 2. The NFL doesn't want us to see, or the audience to see, certain celebrations or taunting. And Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions last week, a week ago tonight, scores a touchdown and then celebrates by thrusting at the football. And he was, he's going to get fined by doing that.
How many thrusts are you allowed?
Well, I don't know the number, but apparently the officials do. Here's the quote. I hit it, boom, no flag. I get to the sideline, sit down, celebrate, boom. And then my receiver coach, who is Antoine Randall L., is like, hey, Saint, one more time, and they said we were going to throw the flag. And I'm like, it's done now. I got it off. Ain't no more pumps. Apparently, the ref told our head coach that if he does one more pump, then we'll throw the flag. And then he told our receiver, guards, and he told me, Amon-Ra St. Brown, celebrating with the thrusts at the football.
This is so funny. I think of Ashley Schaefer, BMW.
One more pump.
Vicious thrust when I hear that.
Yeah. One more pump, and we're going to throw the flag.
I just, the mental image of a middle-aged man that's officiating an NFL game getting close to the groin of a player to count pumps on the touchdown celebration is hilarious to me. He's counting out. That's one. That's two. One more, and we're going to flag you for that. It's just ridiculous. Also, don't do why?
Well,
why do you need to pump the football and thrust the football on a touchdown celebration?
Well, to hold it. Yeah, you're right.
I would have a very easy rule about this if I was a coach. It's just, here's what we're going to do next time. No pumps. If the ref is saying you're one pump away from a flag, instead of costing our team by doing dumb stuff, how about no pumps? No more pump celebrations.
I don't think they're counting the thrusting. I think the official is just saying, hey, I let that go one more time, one more thrust, and I would have thrown the flag, meaning like, don't do it again.
Yeah.
And his response to Antoine Randall, I'm good. I got it off. We're good. Ain't no more pumps.
Yeah. that celebration's done. Celebrating, fine, whatever. Like some of the team celebrations are funny and clever and all that. If you're going to do something that's definitely not going to get flagged, that is fun, I'm mostly okay with it. But
it's also this is a Key and Peele skit in real life.
Yeah, I just don't. There's no need to go thrust after a touchdown.
I love the fact that he just owned it. He knew he was going to get fined when he did it, but no flags. And it sounded like he couldn't believe it when he got back to the sideline.
I don't equate football with sexual activity. And I don't know why we need the crossover, right? There's plenty of ways to celebrate. And to pump yourself up without going that route.
The Key and Peele skit with Hingle McCringleberry or whatever, the tight end. Yes. The official is counting the thrusts in that skit.
That's right.
So here it is in real life. They don't want Hingle McCringleberry celebrated in the end zone.
Yeah, David in the YouTube chat says, Key and Peele say 2, okay, 3 pumps equals flag. Verbatim from their old show.
Oh, I love it. We have heard from Aaron Rodgers for the first time since the injury. And he posted on Instagram, thank you to every person that's reached out, called, texted, DM'd, connected through a friend, etc. It has meant a ton to me. I'll try to get back to all of you soon. Uses a heart emoji. I'm completely heartbroken and moving through all of the emotions, but deeply touched and humbled by the support and love. Please keep me in your thoughts.
Broken heart emoji.
Yeah, yes. Please keep me in your thoughts and prayers as I begin the healing process today.
I'll narrate the emojis, Hutton, for you. Prayer emoji, prayer hands emoji. Is that an infinity emoji? And a heart emoji.
The night is darkest before the dawn, and I shall rise yet again. Proud of my guys, 1-0.
Is he previewing another darkness retreat with that? That he's going to rise from another darkness retreat to find the answer? Or that he's going to rise? It's a good message. And one that I read and I say, he's coming back next year. This is a 4 to 6 month recovery. He can come back from it fully. And he's going to be the Jets quarterback next year. Beyond that, who knows? I think he's got one season to come back and try to do this thing for the Jets.
I shall rise yet again.
I shall rise yet again. Like the phoenix from the ashes. I, too, shall rise yet again.
Yeah, he's going to be back. The question is, at his age, you never know. I mean, Brady's the outlier.
What if Zach Wilson makes this thing a competition this year, this play? Stranger things have happened. If he goes on, has a great season, the Jets are doing well. And then Rodgers comes back in. And what if this team goes to the AFC Championship game? Let's say with Zach Wilson.
There's one quarterback that they've paid $75 million guaranteed to, and they have a huge cap hit if he's not.
Yeah.
Rodgers is.
It'd be great. A great situation because then suddenly he's tradable.
Right.
Someone's like, hey,
Although
Zach Wilson did pretty well.
His contract is up, I believe.
Oh, his rookie deal?
Yeah. Chad, NSYNC is rumored to be the NFL halftime show for the Super Bowl, at least the boy bands in general, and at a great column by Mike Gunzelman at OutKick. on
I'm
this.
gonna quote the great Gun Show on this because his sources are telling him that Rock Nation, who is throwing the halftime show, producing it, that they are exploring the possibility of a boy band themed halftime show that goes from New Kids on the Block to Backstreet Boys to NSYNC, all over the place. Also, apparently I'm not following 98 Degrees or Nick Lachey on Instagram, but 98 Degrees has been posting things together. That makes two of us, the dumb. We may be the only two people on Instagram that aren't following 98 Degrees. But me and Jessica Simpson didn't see this. Guns, however, did. They're now posting stuff together. So NSYNC is now together again, or at least presenting Taylor Swift an award. Taylor Swift teased that something big might be coming. They are, I think, recording a song for the Trolls movie that Justin Timberlake is the big voice on. So, look, there's been worse halftime shows. I'll just say that as a boy band fan, if that, in fact, is the case. Now, what Guns also said was that Harry Styles would lead it, and there'd be kind of a One Direction angle, too.
Maybe Destiny's Child.
I think that's too much. Like, let it be boy bands or let it be Harry Styles.
One big thing on every NFL game. That is next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And
I mean,
what he reposted and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here for the Thursday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here across the OutKick network.
It's like we just started the show, Hutton. It's like we just started, and here we are.
Flying by. Coming
1
up
hour
in
left.
20 minutes, Ryan Leaf joins us. A lot to discuss across college football and the NFL. He joins us weekly on Thursdays. We've got plenty on Colorado and Deion later this hour, plus Chad's Atlanta Braves accomplishing yet another feat. And coming up in literally a minute, one big thing on every NFL game. But I want to kick it off with this question that I posed to the studio. On the NFL kickoff rosters, there are 1,696 players across the league. So let's just say 1,700. Of the 1,700 players that were on Week 1 rosters, active rosters, Chad, how many do you think of the players are under 200 pounds?
This is a great question. So you said roughly 1,700 plus, right?
Yes. Yep.
10% of that would be around 170. I'm going to go less than 10%. Hutton, I'm going to say 150.
Matty Ice said, I believe 600 players.
600.
Colin said 70-something.
Matt's
roughly.
going with over
52.
a third of the league being
players
less than 200 pounds.
Weighing under 200 pounds. The number is exact, and it's impressive. On NFL kickoff rosters, there were 300 players weighing under 200 pounds. There are 262 players that are under 6 feet tall. And there are 337 players that weigh over 300 pounds in the NFL.
I thought the number would be higher for guys under 6 feet tall. So the number is higher of guys under 200 than guys under 6 foot.
Yes.
That surprises me.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a great stat, though.
Yeah, also 7 games were decided by one score or less of those matchups in Week 1. 10 games within one score in the fourth quarter. Chad, Week 2, it's got to be better, right, than some of the matchups and losses that we saw from what we believe to be Super Bowl contenders. It's time for one big thing on every NFL game. Tonight, we kick off Week 2 in Philly. Vikings on the road against the Eagles. 11 of the Vikings' 13 wins a year ago were one-score victories. And then they lost 31-24 in the postseason. And then they just lost 20-17. So they're trending in the opposite direction recently. Justin Jefferson, 7 catches, 138 yards in the first half, and then 2 targets after halftime. And they're facing a Philly offense tonight that wasn't great against New England in Week 1. They were 4-13 on third down. Goddard targeted 1 time. 2 touches for Swift, and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, 18 yards combined after the catch on 14 catches. They were sluggish. They were slow, and so was Minnesota. 1-0 at home, return for Philly. Meanwhile, here's Minnesota trying to avoid the 0-2 start.
What a big moment for Minnesota after losing to Tampa Bay at home. I expected better performance out of them, but the problem is I'd almost feel better about the Vikings' chances, Hutton, if the Eagles looked like the Eagles in Week 1, and they didn't. I thought they didn't look good either. So I think both teams have a bounce back. Yeah. So I'm going to give this one to the Eagles for that very reason.
Nearly giving the game away in New England by going for it on that 4th down around midfield, not getting it. And then the Patriots had a chance to go down and score. Ravens, they're hitting the road after their Week 1 win against Houston in Baltimore. They now travel to Cincinnati. to face Joe Burrow and the 0-1 Bengals. Rookie wide receiver Zay Flowers. What a debut. 9 catches in week 1 for Baltimore. This for a team that last year went 12 straight games without a wide receiver catching a touchdown pass. Todd Monken, welcome as offensive coordinator. J.K. Dobbins, unfortunately, done for the year with an Achilles injury. We'll see a rotating backfield there, and it's likely Melvin Gordon, who's on their practice squad, who's playing on Sunday. Fantasy football owners may need that if you have Dobbins like I did. Mentioned Flowers. He's the guy to stop based on the targets. Wasn't a great debut for the other new additions for Baltimore. They win anyway. Not a great debut for Cincinnati in 2023. But all is not lost. Joe Burrow has a kryptonite, and it is Cleveland. He has 1 win in his career against the Cleveland Browns. 1-5 is the record. 82 yards passing last week for Joe Cool. First time he's ever thrown under 100 yards in a game. And it's early, but what would an 0-2 start look like for Cincy? Their schedule later, let's say week 8 to the end of the year, they go on a stretch on the road where they play at San Francisco. Not all of these are back-to-back. They'll be on the road in Baltimore, on the road in Jacksonville, on the road in Kansas City. They need to avoid an 0-2 start, and they're facing Baltimore on the road, or at home, hosting them.
When did they go back to grass in Baltimore? Was this recent?
Every time I've been there, it was grass. Whenever I was traveling with
I feel like they had turf and then reverted back to grass. Maybe I'm wrong. I've looked that up. That'd be an interesting case study to find the team that was turf that went grass. It's rare that you see that. Usually they've just always been grass.
Seahawks hit the road after losing at home to the Rams. They're now headed to Detroit. Dan Campbell mentioned this week that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to see an increased workload in week 2. The Seahawks have a history of allowing running backs on those dump-off passes to get after that defensive scheme. Gibbs can be a primetime player in week 2 and have the coming out party. Welcome to the NFL. Seattle shut out entirely in the second half against the Los Angeles Rams. The Seahawks lost both of their starting offensive tackles in that game. Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas injured, and the Rams defense got after Geno Smith. Detroit with a 2-0 start opportunity, and they begin their home slate Sunday.
The Ravens switched in 2016 from turf to natural grass. Why? Because Ravens ownership said the players thought it was safer, and that's why they did it. There you go. There's your case of it. That what all the players want.
Bashotti
said players prefer to play and practice on real grass, so that's what we're giving them. That was the reasoning.
Colts and Texans in Houston. The Colts, you think they missed Jonathan Taylor? They had 65 yards rushing last week against Jacksonville. 40 of the 65 yards were from Anthony Richardson. They didn't have a run longer than 12 yards. And to further emphasize this, Richardson, in his first career start, dropped back 45 times, 37 passes, and rushed 10 times. That's really all you need to know. They're going to throw the football, and it's boom or bust against the secondaries they're going to be facing. Bears are on the road now in Tampa. Buccaneers, a surprising road win in week 1. Chicago, surprising loss to Green Bay, even though the Packers own the franchise. Baker Mayfield, a chance to start 2-0 in the reclamation season for him, rising from the ashes as Aaron Rodgers will do next year, he says.
Right.
The Buccaneers defense, though, is why they won at Minnesota, 2017, the final score. And Justin Fields, I keep waiting for the college version to show up. It's time. This is a big spot against a beatable opponent on the road to show that you're climbing the ladder instead of staying neutral or maybe even regressing past what has happened so far in the young career.
Such a disappointing debut at home against Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers, who owned the Bears, and now Jordan Love started his ownership of the Bears. Feels like there's no must-win in week 2, this feels pretty close to it for Chicago going down to Tampa. They need this one badly.
Jags win in week 1. They now host the 0-1 Kansas City Chiefs. 2 quick things here. Chris Jones returns on the Kansas City defensive front. He was missed. Kansas City, their defense, only sacked Jared Goff once and only had 4 hits on him last Thursday night. And passes over 10 yards in the air. Trevor Lawrence in week 1, 8 of 11 for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. That sounds easy to accomplish. It's not when you see the numbers of the other QBs. Falcons are hosting the Green Bay Packers, 1-0 against 1-0. Atlanta, their first week 1 victory since 2017. And that's also the last time that the Falcons finished above 500 for the season. 1-0 for the first time since 2017. And Jordan Love, 15 of 27 on passes for 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. You can't get much of a better start from Jordan Love, who now hits the road.
Game that didn't seem like it was going to be big when you're looking at it in the preseason in week 2 feels a little bit bigger now.
Yes.
With these 2 teams going head-to-head.
Yep, and most importantly, he won in that performance. Chance he can do it again. Bills are hosting the Raiders. Josh Allen, we know the turnovers from Monday night. 84 turnovers, leads the league since 2018. 5.8 yards per attempt. Allen, that was his stat line. 5.8. That's the second lowest average since the start of the 2022 campaign. And guess who they played? That Jets defense. That's the second lowest because the lowest in his, of Allen's tenure is against last year's Jets defense. Maybe that's the kryptonite. Chargers at Titans. Chargers, if you think about the 0-2 start and what that would mean, detrimental is how I would describe it. Except the Chiefs can also start that way. So not all is lost potentially based on the results of these games. Austin Eckler dealing with an ankle issue. That means that Joshua Kelly may get the majority of the work in the backfield Sunday here in Nashville. The Titans' run defense, by the way, elite. Tennessee and San Francisco tied for the lowest rushing yards allowed in week 1, and only 3 teams rushed the football 40 times or more in week 1. The Chargers were one of the 3. That surprised me.
Yeah.
They tried.
You don't think about that. Well, it's because they're in so many plays, too. Both offenses.
Well, yeah.
Were moving the ball, but you don't think about that with Justin Herbert at quarterback.
76 total offensive plays, second most in week 1 to Miami. They're just trying to keep the football away from Tua. Late afternoon, 49ers and Rams. Niners' number 1 option, Ayuk. Caught all passes headed his way. 8 passes, 129, 2 scores, one of the great throws by Brock Purdy. Apparently, Matt Stafford has a better connection with the young players on the roster than what his wife made it seem, because he connected on some great throws with some great play from the rookie receiver Nakua in week 1. Giants and Cardinals. The Giants have now lost 5 straight and 12 of the last 13 games to the Dallas Cowboys. They've lost 4 straight to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they were blown out in the NFC divisional playoff last year, 38-7. Jets and Cowboys. The line moved from 2.5 on Monday morning to 7.5 whenever Rodgers was done with the Achilles injury. Commanders and Broncos. Jack Del Rio's defense off to a great start defensively. And can the new Denver offensive line that's been it's a makeover. Can they hold up against a pass rush that got after the quarterback a week ago? Great defensive game plan against Arizona. 0-2 for Russell Wilson with Sean Payton.
And Sean Payton has returned, not like the Phoenix rising from the ashes that we'll see with Aaron Rodgers so far for Sean Payton if he starts 0-2.
Sunday Night Football. We head to Foxborough. New England hosts Miami. The Dolphins attempted 45 passes to just 13 rushes in week 1 against the Chargers. Christian Gonzalez had a nice debut for New England at corner. Yeah. Good luck.
He's going to get some work this week. He's going to get a lot of reps in this game.
Jonathan Jones has typically been locked up on Tyreek Hill in these divisional matchups. That means Gonzalez will be on Waddle if that holds true in this game. Doubleheader on Monday night, and they're going head-to-head with an hour difference on kickoff time. On ESPN at 6:30 is Saints and Panthers in Carolina. Regular season series is crazy. Regular season series between these two franchises, 28-28, but it gets weird. The clubs are deadlocked 14-14 in both home and road contests. And of the 56 regular season games in the series, 28 have been decided by 8 points or less, with each team winning 14. A lot of even matchups here. So, rookie quarterback against Desmond Ridder, against Derek Carr, who their offense only put up 16 points a week ago. And the other Monday Night Football game, Steelers hosting the Browns. 30-7 loss is the worst margin of defeat at home in the Mike Tomlin era. Think about that. You had the stat earlier this week about Saban losing by double digits for the first time at Bryant-Denny.
First time ever at home.
Yeah, and that's the worst margin of defeat for Pittsburgh as they took on San Francisco last week. Christian McCaffrey ran all over the Steelers' defense, and it doesn't get easier in week 2 because now they face Nick Chubb, and then they, in week 3, will face Josh Jacobs. Steelers need to bow up. Back-to-back games at home. And meanwhile, Deshaun Watson, not great, but did enough against Cincinnati. Strong defensive effort, let's put it that way, against Joe Burrow.
Why do we have a doubleheader in week 2 on Monday Night Football?
Because they've added the Thursday night kickoff, and they used to do the doubleheader
on the opening week.
On opening weekend.
They had like the West Coast game, the early game, late game was opening weekend, Monday Night Football. I don't know. I saw that and I'm thinking, why a head-to-head doubleheader time-wise?
Well, they flirted with this
too.
Last year too. They tried this once, and I believe they could do it 3 or 4 times this season.
Well, the reviews are in by me, and I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
At least we get to choose between a game that could be a blowout and a game that's not.
Yeah.
But who knows? Chad,
I'd rather be choosing between those games on Sunday, on Monday.
That's one big thing on every NFL game. Coming up, Ryan Leaf will get his take on some big Week 2 matchups and storylines, and we'll look ahead to Saturday's kickoffs across college football. That's next on Hot Mic.
Here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there, probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself.
I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for? Absolutely not. Yeah. What about RFK Jr.? No. Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm gonna go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, Thursday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Always great to be joined by our next guest each and every Thursday. He is the host of the Straight Line podcast, which is presented by PointsBet. And you can get some great PointsBet opportunities over at OutKick.com/bet. Perfect moment to join up. Initial bet of $50 or more on any game, and receive an official jersey from Fanatics.com. Or if jerseys aren't your thing, there's another opt-in for $150 in credit to Fanatics to get the gear that you really want. Got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. If you have a gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. He's a father, a motivational speaker. He's on Good Morning Football and
He's a Renaissance man.
Sirius XM.
Does
and
it all.
Again, the Straight Line pod. Ryan Leaf joins us. Extremely happy with the Washington State victory as well. You had a great game, a defensive battle at that with Oklahoma SMU. Ryan, welcome. Hope you're well.
I'm well. I just became a Connecticut resident. Went and got my driver's license today. It's a whole process, you know.
You're official. Do you feel any different now that you're an official Connecticut resident? Do you start speaking with what is the Connecticut accent? I wouldn't even know what it is. Are you going to start to take
You're
hold
all
of
in
that?
now. You're East Coast.
Yeah, I feel like I'm an adult.
Hey, let's jump into the story of the week with Aaron Rodgers and the Achilles tear. Done for the year. All expectations are he's coming back. But between now and then is Zach Wilson. And the opportunity he has, and also expectations are much lower now that Rodgers isn't commanding that offense. Your overview of what we saw Monday and expectations now for Wilson, where he really needs to improve based on last year.
Yeah, I was in the city on Monday, and it was live. People were talking about it. People were excited about what Monday Night Football was about to bring, and it was just the biggest spectacle. Aaron Rodgers in that stadium was crazy, and to go out and watch it, happen in 4 plays, it's just so tough. Like it almost seemed inevitable for the idea of Jets fans, getting that joy in the team. And it really looked like this team had found their leader and something had just had come together with everybody and made it something special. So that was really tough to see. The fact that Robert Saleh, who was interviewed at the end of the first quarter and looked like he was in such shock that he could hardly get the words out, that team found a way to win, I think that speaks volumes to what the character of this football team is. And for Zach Wilson to go out and throw a pick almost immediately and, feel the rumblings of the fan base already, And to go out and have the second half that he did, to have a better passer rating than the likes of Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen over the weekend, I think that speaks volumes too. The immediacy of people trying to say, hey, you got to go get a veteran quarterback, I thought was premature. They're not going to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
The only way they could win the Super Bowl was with Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to do that. It would be wasteful to go get somebody else when you have a guy that you ultimately have to find out if he is going to be your future. And so you give him the reins, and the team's good enough to maybe get to the playoffs. They were 7-10 a year ago with Zach Wilson, who didn't have the confidence he has right now going into it. So it is what it is. It's unfortunate. I think a lot of people have talked about Aaron Rodgers coming back next year. We don't know what that looks like. I love that everybody's optimistic, but we have no idea how anything's going to unfold, how the surgery goes, how the rehab goes, whether he wants to put that type of work in to come back and play at 40 years old, all of the things that play into it. This year, all of the offseason, the expectations just, kind of came crumbling down on Monday night. And I'm a little afraid that all that emotion, the win, and all of that finally takes hold on a short week, and they go up against that Dallas Cowboys defense on Sunday afternoon. And, it'd be ugly for any, I think, player going against that defense. Just, this particular one and the Jets could be tough to handle this weekend.
Yeah.
Ryan, on the other side of this game, you've got the Bills, where Josh Allen, clearly a very talented guy, but's having some turnover issues, and you've got this growing divide between him and Stephon Diggs, maybe a growing divide between the two. And Stephon Diggs pointing to his head and saying, get your head in the game to Josh Allen. I can't think of a lot of instances where I see the great quarterbacks in the league being spoken to on the sideline where they're having to be encouraged or someone's encouraging them. Usually it's the other way around. It's the quarterback getting up, getting his offensive line and saying, we're going to go down and score now. Do you make anything of that? Is this just one bad week, or are these turnovers really becoming an issue for Josh Allen and this Bills team?
Well, anytime you turn the ball over, it's an issue. I would argue, I don't think Stephon Diggs has a problem with any of it, because guess what? All those bombs were going to him. Like, he's getting the ball thrown to him. Like, if he's not targeting Stephon Diggs, he probably doesn't throw those interceptions on two of them. So I don't think there's a divide between that. In fact, I think Diggs is coming back going, yeah, just, maybe Josh has to kind of step away from the Stephon Diggs aspect of things a little bit and go, hey, I need to be more open about spreading it around the field and just looking for my star receiver. So I'm not quick to rush into judgment after 1 week, though I would argue that the two teams that I think you would have penciled in to the playoffs before the season started, the Bengals and the Bills, I think there's real concerns there at quarterback positions who are making over $200 million. That's significant. And I don't think it's because of Joe Burrow's talent or his decision-making. I think it's because of his calf. And I think that's going to be a problem for some time until he gets fully healthy. And I don't know how you get fully healthy during the season, but we'll see what the Bills can do. I think the Raiders come to town this week.
Yeah, they do.
That could be a bit of a get right game. Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to probably make the big mistake. And if Josh Allen does, they could lose. If Josh Allen doesn't make those mistakes on Monday night, the Jets don't win that football game.
Right.
There's no way they should win that football game when Aaron Rodgers goes out up 13-3 at halftime. Even Peyton Manning at halftime talking to Scott Van Pelt was like, not going to be a good second half for the Jets. And boy, were they wrong. Everybody was wrong with that. The Jets showed a lot of heart and grit. And then a young rookie steals the show that night and makes the Bills go home with their heads in their hands.
Half the league's 0-1. And you mentioned two of the teams right there in Cincinnati and Buffalo. Is there an 0-2 team, Ryan, or an 0-1 team that if they fall to 0-2, it's the most detrimental to how things set up in your eyes?
I think there's probably two teams out there. One is the New York Giants because of what they have in week 3. They have a short week in the San Francisco 49ers in week 3. So you're pretty much saying you're 0-3.
And they're facing the Cardinals. They should win this game. You're right.
They should.
Right.
It's on the road. Last year, after a loss, they were 6-0 against the spread. That's a good sign for this team. The other team I also think is the Denver Broncos. The Broncos, of course, should have won that game against the Raiders. Russell Wilson had a phenomenal game statistically, they just could not get in the end zone. They do not have the skill position players on the perimeter, to beat people. And so I would say those two teams are very similar in their quest to be 1-1 heading into week 3, and maybe the Seattle Seahawks, just because of, where they were supposed to be after the first couple of weeks. This Detroit Lions game is important to them, and if they're not able to show up, they'll be 0-2 as well. It doesn't mean you're out of the playoffs altogether, but it's certainly a slippery slope to head down, and the Giants, for me, cannot afford to be 0-2 because of what week 3 presents. Like, the 49ers, it's on a short week. That's not going to be good for the Giants if they're 0-3 in Brian Dable's second year.
Ryan Leaf, our guest, he's the host of the Straight Line podcast, which is presented by PointsBet. So week 1, there are some truths, but we don't really find out for a bit. There are also plenty of lies and overhype and overreaction. What's the truth from week 1 that you think sticks? And what's the lie that we saw that isn't going to actually play out?
The truth is that Matt Canada, as offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was the absolute wrong choice to keep on. I don't know why more people didn't make more of a stink about it than him going out. I mean, Kellen Moore was available. There was other ways to go about, looking at different opportunities for the Pittsburgh Steelers instead. I know it was against the 49ers, but I think this is just going to be about the same type of thing all year long, and that's unfortunate. As a Steelers fan, that's incredibly unfortunate. The lie for me is there in Nashville. The lie for me is that Ryan Tannehill is, a turnover machine, is not going to be able to help this team out. I do think that he's going to be able to make a big difference for this team. They were in it. Their defense is good.
Yeah.
I think the Saints are really good, and the fact that they hung in there like that on 3 interceptions, I think the lie out there is that the Titans aren't going to be very good. Wouldn't surprise me if they did something outrageous this weekend and upset the Chargers.
There's only 2 games that feature 2 teams at both 0-1. That's one of them. The other's Houston and Indy. It's surprising that we have half the league, but only 2 games where we're guaranteed to see a team that goes to 0-2. Chad?
Let's talk a little college football, Ryan. I was super impressed with Quinn Ewers and his performance on the road at Alabama. What a huge win for Steve Sarkisian in that program. First time that Nick Saban, as head coach at Alabama, has lost by double digits at home, which is also a remarkable streak. What did you make of Ewers' performance in that Texas offense?
They talk about Texas and all their resources and everything like that. So it always astonished me how they haven't been able to win over the last decade. And Steve Sarkisian, he's taken his time, right? He, 5 wins year 1, 7 wins in year 2. It's not good enough, but he's built a roster. He just flat out has. And one of those big roster additions was Quinn Ewers getting that transfer from Ohio State a couple years ago. He's improved greatly. He let it rip in a game that you needed him to. And to win on the road in Tuscaloosa, that is meaningful. They have guys on the roster that are physical enough to battle those teams in the SEC. They proved it, and that means that they can battle someone like Georgia down the line. So my biggest worry for this Texas team, and it always usually is when you're talking about a Steve Sarkisian coach team, is playing down to your competition. It's just been a huge problem for him at USC, at Washington, at Texas. They win those big games. And in fact, they win them in spectacular fashion sometimes. And then they play, the likes of Kansas like 2 years ago at home and get beat by Kansas. So those are the types of mistakes we cannot see from them the rest of the way through. That's the case. If they're just so talented and they can get them up every single week, there's no reason why this Texas Longhorns team can't vie for a national championship. In fact, you'd have to put them near the front of it because of what that result was in Tuscaloosa last weekend.
Chad and I had a discussion earlier this week that we were so focused on the Pac-12 dissolving and going away that we completely overlooked the great play that was in store this season. How about the quarterback play out west, Ryan? And just the number of teams that have that weapon that is consistent week in and week out.
Ryan's alma mater
no doubt.
Looking great.
Exactly.
At Washington, the 2 teams left behind, look like legitimate contenders to win the conference in Washington State and Oregon State.
Yeah. I knew this was going to be a good year. I knew it was going to probably be the best year of quarterback play. They're all transfers, every single one of them. There's not one homegrown. Cam Ward from down in the Houston area at Incarnate Word. You have DJU from Clemson. You have Michael Penix from Indiana. Caleb Williams from Oklahoma. You have
Shedeur Sanders from Jackson State.
Cam Rising came from Texas.
Wow.
I mean, it's everywhere. Arizona State, all of these places that are transfer quarterbacks who have had a ton of success. And it may end up being the best conference in all of football this year, and it's not going to exist anymore. That shows you how absolutely moronic the people at the top had to have been to fumble this up. I mean, the egos and the way it went down is absolutely putrid, because this is a very good conference, and we're going to start seeing and have a lot of fun when these teams start playing one another. Washington State and Oregon State playing week 4. Colorado, after the Colorado State game this weekend, they get Oregon and then USC in back-to-back weeks. We're going to really find out how physical they are. If they can compete with those teams, watch out. I mean, there's something brewing there. You just got to see it against quality football teams. TCU and Nebraska, you thought were, maybe not so much. So we're going to find out a lot more in the next 3 weeks with what Colorado's doing. But yeah, the Pac-12 is loaded. Washington State at home, they were dogs, if you can believe that. At home against Wisconsin, a team they beat last year in Madison. I didn't get it at all.
That did surprise me.
That was easy money, folks. Anybody out there just running around going, how is that possible? You get 6.5 free points for Washington State, and they win by 10. Go figure.
Hey, your Cougs. We've got 20 seconds left here, but you have Texas Tech and Tarleton State. Tarleton State is like a national championship school for rodeo. We need a report on the rodeo team at some point next week.
We'll get it next week. That's our first question.
When I coached at West Texas A&M, we battled these guys. We battled the Tarleton State team for the Lone Star Conference Championship. We beat them a few times in Stevensville too. So it's a good. I know what's going on with it.
Ryan Leaf has been our guest. Joins us each Thursday. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you. Back at it with some headlines next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted,
he
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Fast show today. Fun one at that. Thursday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Thursday edition, we go into week 2 of Thursday Night Football. Minnesota trying to avoid an 0-2 start on the road in Philadelphia as the Eagles are trying to jumpstart their offense coming off of what was a very lackluster performance in a win against New England. And some great props available with PointsBet and OutKick.com/bet, and great opportunities for you to jump in and take your shot with PointsBet. Here's the big reason why. Exclusively, first-time PointsBet users, you can grab this offer. Place an initial bet of $50 or more on any game. For instance, tonight's matchup on Thursday night with Minnesota and Philadelphia. And looking at the updated line right now, it's the Phillies laying 6.5 at home on Thursday night, short week. You can do that bet, and by $50 or more, you're receiving an official jersey from Fanatics.com. And if jerseys aren't your thing, opt for $150 in credit to Fanatics and load up on the gear that you truly want. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You've got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. If you're ready to get in the game, head over to OutKick.com/bet. You can snag this offer. Check out other great deals with our other partners and sports books, and you can do that right now, OutKick.com/bet, to take advantage of the PointsBet offer for new users.
I love this plastic laminate that you have for that spot.
I
noticed that the other day, and I've not seen you do that before.
I
but
grabbed
it's
this.
Great.
This is one of the plastic covers that they use to reserve tables here, and it was broken, and they were about to throw it away, and I grabbed it because I didn't want Matty Ice to think this was trash and throw it away, and I don't have to take it home every day.
Hutton is as resourceful as an Eagle Scout. The man just like a trained operative that knows how to fight people. They can take anything in their surrounding and
Chad,
use it as a weapon.
tie a tie, okay?
Hutton can find
I'm no Eagle Scout.
Hutton can find damaged placards in a restaurant and, like MacGyver, turn it into something that he puts his live spots in. That was great resourcefulness by you.
Thank you, Chad. I'm glad you noticed.
You are the Meriwether Lewis of sports personalities.
I'm the secretary?
Yes.
To Thomas Jefferson?
Yeah, I am Thomas Jefferson, and you're Meriwether Lewis. I'm not, actually. That might get me canceled if I say that.
No.
So strike that from the record. I am not Thomas Jefferson. I promise.
Anti-cancel culture here, regardless.
I think Thomas Jefferson would have been anti-cancel culture, too, based on his policies.
You know who's not getting canceled? Another Jefferson. Justin Jefferson.
No, he's not.
We were talking to Jake, one of the bartenders here, and there's a prop where if he goes over 60 yards receiving, he was asking us, and we're like, he should get that in the first quarter and a half of this game. If they're doing, based on.
I wonder if it's like a promotion where it's like
football.
If it's like a boost.
Maybe.
It goes down to that.
I don't
where
know what
it makes it
using.
basically easy money for you.
So I'm looking at the line. For him, the prop is over 93.5 receiving yards. So that's got to be a first half total that he's referencing. 93.5 is what it is right now on the app. And he averaged 106 yards per game last season. I would take the over.
I would, if you get 60 especially, you definitely take the over.
He had
on
150 last week. That was in the first half.
The Vikings want to have a chance of winning this one, it's going to need to be an over on that
one. The betting market is leaning heavy to Philly, and I think the smart money's probably Minnesota because it plays into the short week and where you have both defenses that perform well in week one. Roughly 6.5 now. It was 7 or 7.5. I wouldn't give the points in this just because of the short week and what Minnesota is capable of. But then Philly's at home. They didn't have to travel, and they have Smith and Brown.
Well, here's the deal. The weekend is here.
Yes, it is.
Thursday now. It's football season. Thursday's when the weekend starts. So the weekend is here with this game.
Minnesota's offensive line struggled against Tampa last week. The Bucs blitzed on 44% of all dropbacks. I think Philly will bring the heat too. So Colorado is where you mentioned the weekend is here. The matchups are back. The matchup for the first 3 weeks has been either in Boulder or in Fort Worth because Boulder was traveling. And now Boulder is lined up around the street. You see the waiting for these tickets?
It's crazy.
Well, so you had the students that are waiting. They assigned all these tickets yesterday. And the secondary market for Deion Sanders and his Buffalo's program, it has now surpassed Ohio State as the highest secondary market average at $517 to get in. It goes as low as like $290, I believe, and as high as $700 or $800, close to $900 maybe. But $517 is the average, and that surpasses Ohio State, who since 2021 has led all programs in that stat, in the secondary market average.
Well, so I've been to Boulder, and I've walked right up to this. This is during the summer. Walked right up to Folsom Field just to see it. Was on the campus.
Yeah.
Want to take a look at it. This is probably like late Mike McIntyre era, maybe the year that Mel Tucker was there, maybe the start of Carl Durrell, somewhere around that time frame. And, you could walk right into the stadium at that point. There's no gates. There's no it's just crazy for me to think about walking around that stadium and thinking how bad Colorado was at the time and how little interest there was in anything going on around there. But you see the beauty of that campus and that area. And, it is untapped potential. Tap the Rockies over there. It is untapped potential of that campus, and that the whole setup is beautiful. And now that they've got some buzz, got some juice to that program, we're starting to see some of that now.
The story.
There were no lines to do anything in Boulder when I was there that summer, that's for sure. And now look at the lines for tickets.
Even the lines were jammed for the ticket office since their win in Fort Worth. 3 days after that, they sold $430,000 worth of tickets as they returned home last week. And since then, Chad, we've seen the campouts where they're trying to get tickets. And they're also reportedly, the city of Boulder made $18 million based on the weekend. Here is Deion Sanders responding and giving his thoughts on the students and the city and the monetary effect that primetime brings to Boulder.
Man. And them kids crazy, man.
That's what they had to do. Let you come
in. You seen that line? Man. The line up this morning for the students to get tickets.
Yeah, it was hard. It was there at 6 a.m.
Yeah. But like this,
and they got there like 2.
This is like on everybody's list of the seasons. Everybody's trying to come out. They never been. Some people never been. No, they coming to Colorado to get in this game.
They say the city made $18 million last weekend.
Ooh. See, but in the hotel's already booked right now. You know that, right? The reality of it is, guys, that's what's really important. Yeah.
They made 18 mil this week.
That's what's really important. Out of all of the city loves when you win because everybody around here win.
Everybody, the whole town.
That's a lot of coin.
I love though. That's what's really important.
I asked the question earlier this week to the Colorado Report. Is there a time where Deion doesn't have a camera rolling around him? That camera.
I think he's very comfortable with that camera at all times.
Yeah.
Very comfortable. I was reading an article at The Athletic today that was they were getting the anonymous quotes from coaches around college football on Colorado. And they were mostly, complimentary. Hey, we all thought they were going to be bad, but they clearly have a quarterback and they got an offense that can do some things. But I was interested to see that a couple of different coaches said, Deion is just a figurehead, but what they have on that staff. And I just found that interesting that they would say that anonymously. He's just a figurehead. Deion's more of a figurehead, they would say. And that staff is really good, that he's assembled around him.
NFL coaches there and much more. I was thinking about this too. Penny Hardaway, when he took over at Memphis from high school to college, there were NCAA infractions.
Yeah.
And having to gauge what you can and can't do if you don't know that rule book. So the staff behind the scenes has to be trying to make sure that they keep every I dotted and T crossed, even though, it's a long year and we'll see the full effect of prime time on the next recruiting class.
I'm watching him in the interview on Fox on Saturday, and he's not, he's not mentioning. I'm laughing thinking about him having to know the NCAA rule book to know he can't mention a recruit's name.
Right.
Or do things like that in an interview with a camera rolling at all times. And clearly he knows about it. We got a Vikings fan pointing to his hat over here. I wish you well, sir. Hopefully the Vikes win tonight. Unlike they did for me last week when I picked him. And I said, bring that man back over here, in fact, so I can have a word with him about the Vikings failing miserably against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and costing me my survival pool. But watching Deion have to navigate the NCAA water, that's kind of comical to me. But that was a big discussion point when he went to Jackson State.
Yeah.
He's going to have to play by the rules and do this and do that.
But
remember when this all started, by the way, when Florida State hired Mike Norvell?
Yes.
I remember reports about Deion Sanders wants that job, and there's a groundswell with there's certain people at Florida State that are influential that want it to happen. And I remember the time just being blown away thinking, what? This is real? This might actually happen? And now think like the alternate universe. Florida State's doing well now with Mike Norvell. They're fine. But think of the alternate reality if his first job was Florida State, his alma mater.
They'd have more than 16 players in the NFL right now.
Crazy to think about.
Alabama's 57, for instance. By the way, Colorado has 7 players in the league. That's going to change too.
That number's going to go up.
The other Deion aspect of it that's different than another former great that's now coaching that doesn't. It's the fact that he doesn't really go on recruiting visits. Travis Hunter, Florida State, they sent the entire staff to his final game in high school. Deion never stepped foot on his high school campus, and he went to Jackson State.
He gets everyone there. This weekend's going to be so huge because he gets to get everyone, just bring them to him, and he can talk to them there.
Chad, are the Braves about to go back-to-back? It's now 6 straight.
6 straight.
6 straight.
Well, they didn't win last year. They won the year before, so 2 out of 3.
They're back-to-back as far as the dominance of the run. The 6 straight NL Easts.
Yeah, 6 straight divisions.
And they are putting up numbers.
Oh, it's incredible.
So we've overlooked the Pac-12 quarterback play. Nationally, we have overlooked the historical significance of this roster.
They got a chance now. They still have some stuff to play for, too, because they're not out of the clear of the Dodgers to get home field throughout the playoffs or in the National League. They have a chance to break the all-time franchise record for wins this year.
It's incredible.
It has been a fun team to watch all summer. That offense is ridiculous. I'm watching last night, and John Smoltz says Spencer Strider is way ahead of any Braves pitcher in history at his age and what he's doing. And I'm thinking, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, yourself. And John Smoltz said, hey, I say that, not knocking anyone else. Said, I sucked my first 2 years in the league. So I had to learn how to do this job. I had to learn how to pitch. This guy is far ahead of any young – where he is at this point in his career compared to any great Braves pitcher is far better. That's something crazy to hear because we always talk about the lineup of the Braves. And then you got Ronald Acuna Jr. on Tuesday night hitting a home run and making the Phillies mad and their manager mad, which is always
cool.
nice. And, with the rival, and the Phillies are great. I think they're going to end up playing in the playoffs. Right now, it would be the Braves facing the winner of a Phillies-Cubs series in the divisional round. Phillies beat the Braves a year ago. That's a stacked lineup also, and they got the best bullpen in baseball. So that's going to be a tough test. But it is nice when you can clinch the division on your rival's home field. They did that in Philly last night, winning 3 out of 4 in that series. That's a nice little cherry on top.
I'm sorry, but if I'm hitting a 425-foot homer, you better believe I'm going to fly around the bases.
He was flying, and then he did the ice water check.
And I'm watching. I'm going to watch it down too.
Yeah,
I'm going to watch it land, and then try.
Thompson, the manager for the Phillies, used the old line of "I tell my guys to act like they've been there before." What's his quote? That's what we prefer.
Is there all the time?
Yeah. Hey, he's been there before and he's done the same thing. He'll celebrate like that most of the time.
The Vikings have lost close games before. They've been there before. They were winning close games
last year. They won almost all the close games.
Yeah, 11 of them, I believe. And then you one-score games. And now they're on the road in Philly, who didn't have many one-score games. They won a lot. I'm taking the points. I'm taking the Vikings to cover.
I have no faith in the Vikings after last week.
We're back at it tomorrow to preview the college football weekend. Hope you'll join us.